Hey TV fans and Buffy fans, welcome back. Now, Rachel McDonald back with you. We continue our reviews and watch through of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So we're up to season 4 now. Sort of a new chapter in the Scooby saga. They move to college. With this phase in people's lives, when they do grow up a bit, they move on to college and they start meeting other people and having different relationships. That sometimes can bring a barrier in between them and their group, and that's sort of part of the dynamic of the season. It also introduces the initiative plot, which is the main arc of the season. We have Adam, who ends up being the main big bad, but we also have the mad scientist of the piece, Maggie Walsh, Lindsay Kraz, and we introduce Riley as well. So much to talk about this season. Quite a few big dramatic episodes, divisive season of all 7 of Buffy, because I think with the other seasons there is a genuine consensus from the fans, because I think there's a lot of love for the first 3 seasons in general. I think there's a lot of love for season 5. It has its haters as well, maybe, but I think generally people really love season 5, and then they're not so keen, the majority, on the last 2 seasons. So 4 is this weird in between seasons where it is very up and down, and it is very divisive. What do you think of Buffy season 4?
I actually was quite enjoying myself watching it this time around. I think you're right. I think it is an outlier in the Buffy fandom, and I actually do think it's because it really is the only season that kind of stands by itself. The first 3 seasons are the high school years, and the last 3 seasons are what I call the dawn years. So they're connected. They're together. Whereas season 4 is really the only season where we truly see Buffy as a college girl. She still goes a bit in season 5, but we see her drop out, and it's the first season that's away from the setting that we're used to. We don't have a library or a magic box or, a central place for the characters. I think it does a really great job, and we'll talk about this as we get into it, but I think it does a really great job of showing the disconnect that friends have when they finish high school and you don't have that daily experience of seeing each other every day in the same classes, in the same place. You're now in a different setting, you're going off on different ways, you're meeting new friends, you're starting new relationships, and we see all of this come into play over Buffy season 4. I actually think the season gets off to a really strong start. The first few run of episodes are actually really good. The open is really great. Living Conditions is hilarious. You have the harsh light of day, you have Fear itself, you have Pangs, you have this really great run of episodes. However, I do think that the season does start to get really shaky in the second half. And I do think that is down to the initiative and Adam, which we'll get into talking about that, because I think that the initiative is one of the weakest arcs and one of the weakest big bads. And it kind of opens up a whole lot of questions about the initiative itself and where it's been and why is it suddenly in Sunnydale. The new characters are interesting. I have to say, and again, we'll talk about this as we go along, but I was not hating Riley this season. In fact, I kind of like Riley this season. It's very odd.
Interesting.
I know. And I think that the characters themselves have really good journeys this season. We see all of the characters struggling a lot and trying to find their new place. And I like the juxtaposition of Willow in college versus Buffy in college, and how, in high school, Buffy was always the confident one, but in college, Willow's actually a bit more confident because she's a bit more in her element. And you especially see that, in the first few episodes. Giles as a gentleman gentleman of leisure is just hilarious. And this is one of the few seasons where I don't mind Spike because he's actually kind of entertaining this season, you know? He's kind, because I like in this season that even though he is with the Scoobies, he's still an antagonist, you know, like he's not evil, but he's definitely not there to play nice. And you see him, you know, getting his fingers in all sorts of pies and like, you know, brewing discontent between the Scoobies. And I think he and Giles have some of the funniest moments. Like, I love the dynamic between him and Giles.
Agree.
It's
I love some
so funny. So yeah, season 4 overall, I did have fun watching it, but I definitely think it's got some big issues. So we'll get into that. How did you go with this watch this time around?
Without a doubt. Yeah, I think this is a fairly consistent season. It obviously has a couple of like all-time great episodes. I've got a real soft spot for the finale, actually, which is a very different sort of finale. Now, we'll get to that later on, but that's
absolutely
a more experimental finale, which as I believe, from what I know, they did that because they knew they were safe for another season. And
very
it was
cool.
the first time they knew that up to this point.
So they were able to
do that. Character stuff, I think the majority of the main characters are really good, like really good character growth. And you're sort of right about what you're saying with Willow. I think this is where she's sort of really peaked so much as a character. Like, she's at her fullest at this point and her most confident, as you said. You can sort of see that in the Freshman, the opening compared with Buffy, you know, how different they are in very different places. And once again, I think they get the coming of age stuff so well. Like it is very believable, the separation that they have over the course of the season. Spike, I think it is once again a very, very entertaining like antagonist. The whole storyline with him and the chip is very interesting, like a great direction to take the character at this point. I think there's a lot of meat with that particular storyline. And he's involved in some of the best scenes of the season, some of the best episodes as well. He's pretty much to the forefront. So I'm with you on Spike. I think it's still a strong Spike at this point. We'll get to Adam, because actually one of the things I enjoyed more this time was him, because I've always been quite down on him as a villain. He'll be nearer the bottom if I was ranking the big bads, but that might just be a testament to the quality of them. Because most of them are good. Like, there's not really many weak ones. But actually, I did get more into Adam this time around.
Okay, that'll be interesting. So when we get to talking about that, we'll have to, you can let me know what it was. Because, I just find Adam a bit blur, but we'll get to that one.
Walsh was originally supposed to be the main big bad.
I think that would have worked better. I think he's got some interesting concepts, which we'll definitely talk about when we get there, and especially his appearance in Restless makes me think that there was definitely more to the character than what was supposed to be. But I've heard both sides. I've heard that Lindsay, the actress, wanted to leave, and I've heard that Joss decided to just kill her off. So I don't know what the real story is, but whatever it was, I think that change in direction did hurt the season. Did hurt the later half of the season. He's an interesting character, Professor Walsh, and I think that working from his mad scientist angle, and the fact that they find out that she's a bit of a rogue agent within the initiative, and her weird obsession with Riley. Like, this is all kind of stuff that's like hinted at, but then we don't get the chance to really explore it. So I think that's a pity. Weird. Did you love Adam's state-of-the-art, computer design with his floppy disk drive?
Yeah, I did. Riley, because I'm still not a fan. I still find him boring. But I think what's interesting is, because I've now rewatched the show several times, I think he's just there for me, and I just accept him as being there. And because I'm into a lot of the other stuff, it doesn't really bother me. It's like the romance with Buffy, I don't really feel. So that's the problem. So when they're just focusing on the romance, those scenes are weaker, because I just don't think they've got chemistry, those two. And But the rest of the time, he definitely has his good moments. But it's like, yeah, I think it's a bit like a season 7 character who we'll talk to when we get there, who's hated by the fandom. I think you know who I mean.
Yeah.
But I think it's similar with her, where over time I've just watched the show enough, and I've just
Yeah.
accepted they're there, and yeah, for me they don't really drag things down as much as they
Well, when we
used
get
to.
to season 5, we will have lots to talk about with the direction they take Riley's character. But yeah, I was finding him this season, I was finding him okay. Like, I didn't love him, but I didn't hate him the way I thought I was going to. I don't think
Yeah.
he and Sarah have the best chemistry, but I think for me, they've got enough to make their relationship believable. And I do think that Riley was kind of exactly what Buffy needed. She needed someone a bit boring and a little and more solid, and someone who was actually going to be there for her after everything she went through with Angel. Buffy just needed, she needed someone a bit more solid, maybe a little bit boring. I mean, you know, after you date the evil dead, you kind of need someone who's not going to turn evil when you have sex. You know, you need someone nice and boring and cardboard who looks like he comes from a Norman Rockwell painting. So I think Riley was okay for her. But yeah, we'll talk more about Riley as the season goes on.
Because I've heard, and I think this is where they've cast him well, is I've heard that is the real actor. Like, he is really, you know, this sort of down to earth sort of farm boy.
I can definitely picture that. Yeah, he's got that look, doesn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting. We've also got Tara to talk about, which we'll get into, because I always enjoy when she shows up, and
me too.
Her debut. I think she makes a good debut. I think she fits into the group quite naturally. Actually,
yes, she does.
That's quite impressive. That's quite hard to do, you know, when you're into a 4th season. And Anya has a very good season, I think. I really enjoy a lot of the stuff with her and Xander.
Oh, okay. See, Anya for me is a character that kind of similar to what you were saying with Riley. She's just kind of there for me. I don't love her. I don't hate her. She doesn't really do anything for me. She's just kind of there. So, yeah.
Well,
and I think that's to do with the fact that she's not really a very developed character. Like, she's mostly just there as especially this season, as Xander's love interest. I don't buy her and Xander as a couple, and I don't think that Emma and Nick Xander in and of himself has a really fun arc this season, with him trying to figure out who he is after college and after high school, and who he is without his friends. And, you know, they're doing their school thing, and he's got quite a few moments of feeling like they're pulling away from him. I love when Spike comes to stay in the basement. I think that is a fun dynamic.
Yeah.
I think Xander gets some really, really fun development and really fun, you know, episodes this season. Have that great a chemistry either. So
Anna is Emma Crawford. I think she's really great, and
she is very funny. I will give her that. Great comedic timing.
Initiative storyline. Is it then you don't like the idea of it, or do you just think it's badly executed?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
So I do think it is very badly executed, but it also feels like, for me, I don't think the initiative fits in Buffy. The initiative feels more like an X-Files thing, you know, like it's a little too science fiction-y. Yeah, Buffy is like, I come to Buffy for vampires and demons and, you know, that sort of thing. I don't come for government conspiracies and secret underground labs and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's a combination of, I don't think it was a great idea in the beginning, and then it was not a great idea that was then not executed particularly well. And I've got like a lot of questions about the initial Forrest.
He's terrible. He's even more boring than Riley.
Yeah, he is. And he's
the only time I sort of like Forrest was when he was turned into basically like a demon or whatever.
Exactly.
He was actually much better suddenly, but yeah, before then he was, and you can tell the actor just can't act, because it's like some of the reactions he's had with Buffy, his reactions just fall so flat. It's just so like monotone and sort of wooden, really.
It's
Yeah,
terrible. It's truly terrible. It's made even more terrible by the fact that he's one of the few black characters in the show and he's written so badly. And it's just
yeah,
like, come on, you could have done more with Forrest. And is he just in love with Riley? Because I swear to God, his extreme reaction
maybe.
to Buffy is just so over the top. It's like, dude, just admit you're in love with Riley and you're jealous that Buffy got to hit that and you didn't. He and Riley are in like the cafeteria and he's like scoping all these chicks out and he's talking about like all these girls in like really crass ways. And he's all like, he sees Buffy and he's all like, ooh, look at her. And he's all like, and Riley's like, she's Buffy. And he's like, oh yeah, she's so hot. She's Buffy. And I'm like, what does that even mean? What are you even
Pretty
doing with that?
cringe.
It's so
Yeah.
cringe.
Graham. I mean, obviously, Forrest has a bigger role than Graham, but it felt like you maybe only needed one sort of close friend for Riley. And I
Exactly.
think Graham's all right. Graham's not too bad, actually.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
think he
not the
could
most
have.
developed, but he's got a more level head than Forrest does, and the actor is at least slightly better. And
I think
yeah,
the
I think
actor's better, yeah.
I think it should have been Graham at the forefront rather than Forrest because Forrest
Yeah.
was just. I mean, no one likes Forrest. I don't think anyone in the entire
No,
Buffy
I've
fandom
not
likes
come across
Forrest.
it. And that's pretty rare because normally you have a
Yeah, you
supporter
usually have a small
somewhere.
subsect.
Yeah. Initiative.
Mm,
I actually do like the idea, and
okay.
I think it is an expansion of the theme of Buffy. Like, if you think about the Hellmouth and dark secrets lurking underneath the
Mm,
sort of
okay. Yep,
this
I can see that.
pretty sort of thing. I think it's an extension of that in a
Yeah.
way, and yeah, it obviously gets a bit messy by the end of the season. So
Mm,
the execution
yeah.
definitely could have been better, and that might be down to rewrites.
This season gets off to a strong start. I think The Freshman is quite an underrated opener because I think it actually does such a great job of showing Buffy's disorientation. Oh, and it has Pedro Pascal in it.
I was going to
Um,
mention that. That's a fun fact,
and he was
which has come
recently
out this
asked
week.
about that on the red carpet for a premiere or something. And he remembered everything, right down to his character's name. And he talked about how apparently Sarah was really lovely and welcoming and really good to him. And he talked about it as like a really fond memory of his from like his early days of
Yeah.
acting. So I thought that was really cool. So yes, he plays Eddie, Buffy's friend that she makes. And I think, like we said, this whole premise of like moving from high school to college and seeing that difference. And I've talked about this before, but can we just marvel at how Sunnydale went from a town with only one Starbucks to a college town? I don't know how that happened, but
No.
Sunnydale now has its own university. But I mean, I think that just that opening shot where you pull in on the college and it's this big, wide expanse of
Yeah.
students, and it just zeroes in on like tiny little Buffy just standing there, completely lost, completely overwhelmed. And then Willow comes along and she's completely in her element. I love her spurty knowledge speech. That's a great speech. And one of my favorite lines in the opener when Buffy's going through all the leaflet people and someone's like, have you accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior? And she's like, oh, I meant to, but I just got really busy. Just like, and yeah, I love seeing, that first bit of like, yeah, that after high school thing. Oh, that scene where she gets kicked out of class. Apparently that was based on a real experience that one of Joss's friends had where he was like kicked out of
Yeah.
class by a really horrible professor.
Doesn't surprise me.
That's terrible.
That guy is, even though he's a right douche, he's very entertaining. The actor does a good job.
Poor Buffy.
But I can imagine that does feel like something a very like snooty sort of professor would do. Yeah.
Yeah. And we get to see that Oz is already acclimated. Oh, we'll have to talk a bit about Oz as well, because I was finding this time around, I was wishing kind of that he'd stayed a bit longer because you could see what they were planning to do with his storyline. But yeah, seeing that he's acclimated so well, we get to meet Kathy. Oh, Kathy. I love Kathy. She is just. And when we get to Living Conditions, such a great episode. But yeah, I just think The Freshman is a really good opening episode. I think Sunday is a fantastic villain. She's really fun. She was apparently, there are rumors that her original characterization was she was actually going to be a former Slayer who had been turned.
Oh,
I
right.
thought that was a really cool
Didn't know
concept.
that.
I'm guessing they ditched it because she was just a one episode character.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like The Freshman, and I think it's an underrated episode. What about you? Did you
I
enjoy the
agree.
opener?
Yeah, because I think it really captures, as you said, the sense of excitement and nerves on your first day at a new like college in particular. And I think just the visuals of the episode
Mm.
did a really great job of like showing just how much bigger it was than
Yes,
Sunnydale High, like the
yes.
campus and yeah, people handing out leaflets everywhere, different groups going to different places, and
Mm.
yeah, that shot when they walk into the library is beautiful.
Yes, yes.
And I've got to say, although he's not the best character, Riley's first scene is actually pretty solid. Like having books dump on his head.
Yeah, that's actually a little bit of a
That's
meet
a
cute.
good way to debut. Impression they were shipping Willow and Riley at one point
It
because
does seem like
a
that at
little
first,
bit.
doesn't it? Yeah. I don't think that was the intent. I think they were just supposed to be,
No.
I think they were just trying to show that Willow is more comfortable than Buffy is. But no, I definitely picked up on some vibes between Willow and Riley. I was like, okay, this is a little odd, you know. Again, it doesn't stick around for long, but I definitely see where you're coming from. But I do think it was, yeah, more supposed to be showing that Willow's just, she's adjusting easier to college than Buffy is.
Yeah, because I don't know, maybe at that point in the season they didn't know exactly where they were going, like because they probably knew at that stage when Seth Green was leaving. I'm guessing they knew
I'm
at
not,
that because
I
he left because he was doing more movies, basically,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
but I'm pretty sure that they thought that they were going to have him for the whole season. That's why they
Oh,
were setting up
okay,
that Veruca storyline. And then, yeah, Seth left
right.
because he was doing Austin Powers and he left to go and do more movies. And, well, then he didn't really do more movies, did he? He should have just stayed on Buffy. But,
Well,
yeah, I'm
he's
pretty
been
sure.
in quite a few movies, to be fair. I mean, in smaller parts, but he has been
Yeah.
in quite a. Yeah, because Idle Hands was sort of after
Oh, I
this.
love Idle Hands.
Oh well,
So
yeah, I
good.
know. I give you a
Yeah.
pop, but
Yeah.
and obviously
Um,
the two.
but
I've
I
seen
like.
him in movies.
Hmm.
You know.
He didn't like, he left obviously because he thought he was gonna, like, I just mean,
Yeah,
like,
he
he
didn't
left and
become a
he didn't
massive
become,
star. No.
yeah. But they're definitely setting up some storylines for him, and I know that Joss has said that they did have a whole storyline planned out for him, and
Okay.
yeah, and I do think it's a pity that we didn't get to see that play out because Oz is a little bit of an underdeveloped character. Again, in seasons 2 and 3 of Buffy, he's mostly just there to be Willow's love interest. So I do, while I love
Hmm.
Tara, and I will never complain about being introduced to Tara, part of me was a little bit disappointed this time around that Oz's arc got cut so short because they really could have done some interesting stuff with the werewolf and the whole the wolf is inside of me all the time angle, the Veruca
Right.
angle, Veruca, ugh. And I really like Willow and Oz as a couple. I think they're adorable, and as much as I do love Willow and Tara, I think it would have been interesting to see more of that. So yeah, Oz's storyline getting cut short,
Yeah.
I think, is a bit of a pity.
I guess they could have done more with the werewolf thing. I'm sort of wondering what more they could have done with it, really. But I don't know if it's just that thing of you have a core cast, so sometimes it's, because I'm definitely happy with what they did with Oz when he was on the show.
Mm.
But I can also see what you're saying. Maybe there was a, you know, a bit more they could have done with the werewolf stuff.
Mm. I mean, he got a little bit of development in season 3. We got to see him, express some
Mm,
more emotions and grow closer to Willow, and the whole Willow and Xander cheating storyline. Obviously, we got to see part of his characterization through that. I just feel that, yeah, they could have built a little bit more with him. And if we'd had him for season 4, we could have gone into werewolf lore, talked about what the
yeah.
specific lore is on Buffy. The fact that Veruca says that she can remember the nights, whereas Oz doesn't. There was obviously more to,
Mm,
like, he would get to a point where he would start to remember. So Zen, he's always very, unemotional. So to have this kind of ferocious beast side to him, to a character that is usually so laconic, like, I just thought that could have been interesting.
Sunday was a good one-shot film.
Sunday is fantastic. He's got some
Yeah,
great
and
lines.
definitely one of the tougher vamps Buffy has faced because she does some quite a lot of damage when they're fighting and stuff.
Yes. Yeah, but I think that really shows how Buffy's mental state really affects her slaying, because she's feeling really lost, really alone, really confused. And so she ends up getting beaten, and that, obviously doesn't help matters. But then you see her at the end of the episode when she regains her confidence
Yeah.
and she manages to take them all out. And it's just great. And I also love Xander coming back in that episode
Yeah, I
at the
like
exact
his
moment that
things.
he needed to, like he's got a knack for that. And him giving Buffy her reassurance, because he's always kind of been that person to kind of tell Buffy the truth and boost her back up. And
He's
I really
right.
like that he's there for her, showing that he's there for her when the others are kind of a little busy. Oh, and of course, Buffy finding Giles with his lady friend and her horrified reaction. Absolutely love that. It's like, when did you turn into Hugh Hefner?
Hugh Hefner,
And,
yeah.
and I love when he's like, I'm not supposed to have a social life. It's like, no, because you're very, very old and it's gross. I just think that's brilliant. So love
Yeah.
that. And again,
Yeah.
that little disconnect between Buffy and Giles, which we do see over the season, because he doesn't really have a purpose this season. I do love Giles as a gentleman of leisure with his jogging and his mod magazines. So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, a lot of good Giles this season.
Mm.
Yeah,
But
you've
yeah,
also got Xander's Road stories, which are fun. Yeah. I saw Grant. I went to the Grand. You saw the Grand Canyon. No, I saw
yeah,
the
it's
movie.
like, no, I
on
saw the film,
TV.
Grand
And the whole gentleman
one
strip
night when
club.
one of their male strippers called in
That's
sick, and no
pretty funny.
no power on this earth will ever make me tell you that story.
Yeah.
Or when he's trying to do Yoda's whole fear leads to hate leads to the dark side, and then he's like, first you get the money, then you get the women. No, wait, that's wrong. And then he's trying to
Yeah,
like
no,
just
he's
boost Buffy
great.
back
Yeah.
up. So that's
And he
great.
once again just leans into his whole underdog character. Like,
Yeah.
you're sort of gutted that he didn't get to do the proper road trip thing, but it definitely once
Yeah.
again fits into his sort of underdog character.
That's
And
just Xander's luck, isn't it? That
it's
his engine would fall out of his car.
Olivia, but it's a bit gutting you don't see more of her, isn't it? Because she
Yeah.
seemed like she could be a really good partner for Giles.
Yeah, and the few times we do see her, she obviously knows about the demon world, and she and Giles obviously have some sort of history. They have okay chemistry, I think, Tony and whoever the
Yeah.
actress is. So yeah, it is a pity that we didn't see more of her. And then she kind of vanishes after this season, and we never really hear
Yeah, I
about her
think
again.
she's only in 3 episodes, isn't
Yeah. Yeah, it's odd. And it is a bit of a pity because she seems like if they had kept her around, she could have been an interesting character. And again, her popping up in Restless, we'll talk about that whole thing and what might have gone down between her and Giles, because there's a couple of interesting scenes with her in Giles's dream that maybe hint at some deeper things going on.
Boy living conditions, but you seem to love it. It's a fun comedy episode. So
I have to
if you want
admit,
to talk,
it's not an episode that I really remembered that fondly. In fact, I'm pretty sure that when I was younger and I used to rewatch Buffy all the time, I used to skip it a lot. But I found it so entertaining this time around. First of all, I think it's a great spin on like the demon roommate, the roommate that you hate, that you just cannot get along. I think anyone who's lived in a dorm or in a group house or, has lived with housemates that maybe really piss you off. Like, I think it's just a really great demonstration of that. I think the chick who plays Kathy is hilarious. She is so maniacal. I love the Celine Dion poster. I do not love the constant repeats of Do You Believe in Love After Love, because that song pissed me off back when it was released in 1998, let alone having to listen to it now in 2023. But I do think it was a great pick because it is that kind of song that is so annoying that it really demonstrates, how annoying Kathy is. And then I think those little flashes of like what the demon is doing to Buffy in her sleep are like really horrifying. They really emphasize that there is something sinister going on here. Plus, I love Buffy getting so overworked about Kathy, the harsher and harsher she gets. I absolutely love when she's out patrolling with Oz and, she's all like, and then Kathy said, share this. And I was like, oh yeah, share this. And then she does like something and like,
she's good.
no, you either killed her or you did your whack mime routine. And she's like, well, she deserved it, didn't she? He's like, no one deserves mime, Buffy. And I just, and then when she cuts the toenails and she's all like, the toenails are growing, and Willow's just like, oh, good God, what is happening? And I just love the scene where like Giles and Oz have her tied up, and they have to go
Yeah,
over and check if the
that's fun.
ropes are loose. It's like, no. Don't approach the Slayer when you don't know whether or not you've tied the the ropes. Oh, and one of my favorite lines: she irons her jeans. She's evil. I'm with Buffy then. Who irons their jeans? So I just think Living Conditions, I just found this time around a really, really fun episode. Oh, and I love the juxtaposition of Buffy complaining about Kathy's little annoying quirks to Willow, whose roommate is like basically having like a massive heavy metal party in her room every single night. And, you know, is so much worse than Buffy's roommate. And yet Willow's just like, it's all right, Buffy, you just need to, you know, learn to share. And it's just, yeah, just so much fun. And of course, you know, you get the great conclusion of Willow and Buffy moving in together, which is great. But I love the misdirection with the demons constantly watching Buffy and Kathy and saying, she's the one. And you think, oh, they're talking about the Slayer. But it turns out, no, they're actually talking about Kathy. They're searching for Kathy on behalf of her father. And I think that's like a fun little angle there.
Yeah, because for a lot of the episode, because they play up so much how much Buffy's like getting pissed with Kathy, yeah, it does a decent job of selling that Buffy could be under influence somehow, or certainly than Kathy's maybe, despite being as annoying as she is actually like innocent in the whole thing. Like, so it's well done. There's some good hijinks in it. Like I sort of like it's share time, that line.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost a double meaning because of Share the Singer as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I did not pick up on that. Plus, Buffy drinking the milk is just brilliant. It's just the way it's like
really
going
funny.
everywhere, and she's just so good.
But once again, yeah, it is that sort of thing that does feel quite true to life, just kind of heightened. Like Kathy putting her name on everything. You can,
I love that.
you can. There's definitely people like that in the world, but it's a fun episode. Like I said, there's some good hijinks. It's a good comedy episode.
Buffy and Kathy are fighting in her room, and it goes to a shot outside. Someone's in the hallway, and they're just like, "Oh, for God's sake, people are trying to study here." Like, it just shows the complete like self-centeredness of like college. Like, you're in your own zone. Something's happening next door. You're like, "Oh my God, just shut up." You know, the fact that all of these hijinks kind of ensue, and everyone's just like, "Yeah, whatever," because it's a different setting to high school. You know? Oh my God, those dorm rooms are like bloody apartments. Like, you definitely like university like living here. Definitely not that luxury. I remember when Stephen was at uni and his room was like a tiny little prison cell, man. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So those are like the roomiest dorm rooms I've ever
Well,
seen.
experience is similar. My rooms were pretty bog standard. Like, you know, I didn't have anything to complain with, but they were definitely bog standard. They weren't like fancy like those, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had really nice. Guess it could be a Californian thing, maybe.
True.
Very good episode, a very heavy episode in some ways. Marcus stuff is very interesting.
The harsh light of day, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a very good episode. 3 different relationships are linked in it, and how we see the connections there. It's also, we should say, the first crossover with Angel of the season, because it brings up the whole Gem of Amora situation, which Spike has returned to try and get his hands on. And we end up with, when Buffy's got it at the end of the episode, Oz goes to California, or not California, sorry, LA, to give it
LA.
to Angel.
Yeah.
And it's worth saying, really, just considering the culture we're in now, where like multiverses and crossovers are so common, the Buffyverse was one of the first to do it, and there was just something so satisfying about the way they do it this season, where you'll have Buffy in one episode at the end go off to LA, and then you'll see what happens on Angel, and then there'll just be different things that they do with it. So it was really fresh at this time to do that, and
it was. And it was a nice way to ease us into Angel's show as well, you know, kind of keeping him somewhat connected to Buffy. So it was still familiar, but transitioning him onto his own show. And I think that season 4 of Buffy and season 1 of Angel work really well together to transition us into LA and into Angel and his spin-off. So yeah, I do like all the appearances. How did Harmony end up with Spike? I really want to know how this meeting happened and where exactly this happened. And I think the reveal of Harmony as a vampire is fantastic because, of course, when you do your first watch and you watch Graduation Day, it's only a brief second that you see her bitten in Graduation Day. It's so small that you could even forget it. And then the fact that they built on that and bring her back, is fantastic. I mean, her and Spike, it's obviously not an even relationship, but it's entertaining.
It's entertaining. Yeah, I think they're great together. And Harmony's another character where it's just they give her this extension as a character, which is pretty fun to play with. And her as a vampire, it's just so perfect because she's pretty much Harmony just as a vampire, and that's why it works so well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the actress definitely gets to play around a bit more. So
yes, she gets to have more fun with Harmony as a vampire than she did with Harmony just as one of Cordelia's, you know, sheep followers. Like Harmony as a vampire, we actually get to know a little bit more. We actually get to see her personality a bit more. Do you know a fun fact? Harmony and Angel are the only two characters who are in the premiere of Buffy and the finale of Angel. So they're both there for the beginning and the end.
Oh, that's a good fact, which... Yeah, that does make sense because,
it's pretty funny though. You wouldn't expect it to be those two characters, but yeah, it is.
And it sort of says something about Harmony, the character, than she is a bit of a survivor. And you wouldn't expect it to be. You would think she would be the one who's like one of the easiest to dispose of. So there's just something about her. She just has survival skills, where she just manages to keep surviving.
Yeah, she's
maybe
got a good
getting
sense
in with the right people too.
Well, there you go. She does seem to. I mean, attaching yourself to Spike is not the worst idea. I mean, at this point, he's still pretty badass. Like, relationship we saw of Spike was his and Drusilla's, you know, and that was so soft and so full of care and stuff. So it's kind of interesting to see him and Harmony where they're just fighting and he's always yelling at her and telling her that she sucks. But then you see that part of her does get turned on by the harshness. You know, there's a part where he's bite your tongue, and she's like, do it for me. And it's it shows that vampires and their relationships are very, very weird and definitely not, the same as a human relationship. So I do like seeing Harmony and Spike's dynamic, and Harmony is definitely a fun addition to this season. Plus, later on, having Harmony around, we get one of the best fight scenes in the entirety of Buffy with her and Xander. So we have to be thankful for that.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Shall we talk about the giant shithead in the room? Good old Parker Abrams.
Trying to sell me on this is going to be Buffy's new love interest for the season. Were you sold on that, or did you always think he's a short-term kind of guy? I mean, obviously you might not have guessed what he was about to do, but I
think when I first watched season 4, I did think at first that he was going to be the new love interest because he is introduced in such a way, and then you see them spending time together. But I'm guessing that was the point. They wanted us to feel what Buffy was feeling, that this was going to be the new guy, and it turns out
because he just came off as a normal guy and quite friendly.
I will say when I was younger, I used to be quite harsh towards Buffy. I used to think, oh, come on, girl, you're in college. What do you expect? But now that I'm older and seeing Buffy and everything that she's been through, I just feel so bad for her because, yes, she is naive, but that's not her fault. She's a young girl in college, and Parker totally takes advantage of that naivety. And I mean, the mere fact that every time you see Parker, he is hitting on another girl. It just makes you realize that he is just gross, Also, you hear him use the same line that he used on Buffy on another girl in the exact same episode. It's come on, dude. That's just low. He's just so
Yeah,
gross.
well, exactly. I mean, that sort of shows you what he's all about. The fact that he's just spent the night with Buffy and he's already moved on to another girl, and
Yeah.
because that's the whole thing. Because there are people who argue what he argues in a later episode. They try and argue that he never actually lied to her, but he definitely distorted the truth. He definitely made it look
Absolutely.
like he wanted a relationship, not just a
Mm-hmm.
one night stand.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, like, yeah, to be fair, like, there is nothing wrong with a one night stand as long
No,
as
absolutely
both
not.
people are on board with it, and
Exactly.
they know.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the case. She
No.
clearly, they've been hanging around together for a week at
Mm-hmm.
that point, sort of like a boyfriend and girlfriend
Yeah.
would. So, and also there is something malicious about him because I considered at first that he might even have been making up the stuff about his father.
Oh, yeah, I thought as well. I was like, is this just a line that you're spinning? And like I said, the fact that we hear him use it again later is like,
Mm.
mm,
Well,
yeah.
also the thing is, even if it is the truth, the fact is he's using it in a bad way. He's using
Mm-hmm.
it as a pickup type thing.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with having one night stands. And a lot of people in college, they do experiment and they do tend to not
Yeah,
tie themselves down. But like you said, the thing is, both parties need to know what they're getting into. And Parker had ample opportunity to let Buffy know that he wasn't looking for anything serious, that he just
yeah,
wanted to hook up. And if you find someone who also just wants to hook up, then fine. Woohoo, go on.
yeah.
But Buffy very clearly did not want that. And she was very clear. I feel like in their interaction, she was making it very clear that she was looking for something more. And I feel like Parker, and I say this especially because, like I said, we do see him a few other times in the season, and every time we see him, he is hitting on another girl. So that makes me think that this is what he does. He finds vulnerable freshmen, naive freshmen like Buffy, and he takes advantage of them. And so, yeah, then that's, I think, why I used to be a bit harsh with Buffy, because I used to just think, oh, well, everyone has one night stands. But no, watching it this time around, you can clearly see that Parker is manipulating her, and you can clearly see that he, does not have good intentions and is
Yeah.
not sharing those intentions with her. And yeah, we end up in this horrible situation. And oh my God, when she wakes up alone, oh, poor girl. Like, this is the second time in her life she's had sex, and she's woken up alone again, because she woke up alone with Angel as well, and it's just like, oh, you poor girl. Like,
Well, yeah, but that's a clever subversion because then he comes in with the coffee. So
yeah.
that's actually quite a clever scene, I think, based on what happened. And they even do a similar thing later with Riley, don't they? When she, for a minute, thinks he's like walked out on
It's
her.
really sad, but then she turns
It
around
is
and he's
sad,
there.
but it's a good
And
running.
one of the reasons I liked Riley this season. I think this poor girl, her first experience with sex was so bad. And now she's had her second experience with sex, and it's also been really bad. Like, the poor girl just needs to get laid in a decent way.
Fits what they're going for this season, and I can see what they're doing with it. I think my problem with it partly is the fallout from it.
Mm.
That's where I would be a bit critical on Buffy or the writing because I think she lingers on it too long after the fact. Considering it's like Parker and she only knew the guy for a week, I don't think she should be as hung up as she is in the episodes afterwards. And
Yeah.
I think also they hit you a bit too hard with everywhere she turns, Parker's there because conveniently he's in her class then suddenly in another episode. Well, we
Mm.
hadn't seen him in her class before that. I think they're just those scenes are a bit too contrived where he just happens to be everywhere she looks.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's a big sort of college and it's just sort of funny that for the sake of drama he then happens to be in her class flirting with
Mm.
another woman.
Oh, I can hear what you're saying. And I remember I used to be a bit kind of like, oh, Buffy, just kind of get over it. But I'm wondering if it's just supposed to be showing. I think it's less about like her fixating on Parker and more about her just feeling rejected and wondering if there's something wrong with her, because she does actually wonder that. And I think the way she holds on for so long is less about her having feelings and more just about the fact that she's just feeling so rejected and so lost, and she's in such a bad place at this point in time. I think it can feel like it's dragging out for too long, but then I remember what it was like to be 18, and you do tend to do stuff like that. You know, you hold on to things, and like I said, this is only her second experience with sex, and her first experience was so bad, so now her second experience has also been bad. It could be her desperately trying to, you know, figure out, is there something wrong with me? Like, why does this keep happening to me? And I think all of that is what is playing out. I do agree that it does get dragged out a little bit. Like, it's like, okay, Buffy, you did only know the guy for a week, but I think given Buffy's relationship history and her history with sex and just everything, and the fact that she was already feeling very lost this year, moving to college and stuff, I think that all just kind of gets wrapped up. But I do agree, like, by the time we get to Be Bad and we're almost at the end of it, it's like, okay, can we just move on already? And luckily we do after that. So, I can definitely see where you're coming from with it being dragged on a bit too long.
One of Riley's highlights this season is punching Parker out. That was definitely
that was
and
good.
Once again, Parker's terrible in that scene. The whole toilet seat.
Yeah, that is gross.
Unfortunately, there are people like that in the world. But, so it was really satisfying when Riley punched him out. Example of how Willow has grown again, the way she puts things in perspective. Like,
that was
the whole poopy head.
And she's like, why doesn't he want me? I think we're forgetting the whole poopy head thing. Plus, I absolutely love the scene in Be Bad where Parker tries the line on her and she's like, what do you think I am, an idiot?
That is the best scene.
That's such a great scene for Willow.
She leads him up the garden path and then just turns it around on him. Yeah.
Well, it's fun seeing Buffy smack him in the head with the club.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good. I like that. I can get on board with that.
But yeah, it's sort of perfect with Willow and Buffy because in a way you could almost jump back 2 years and the roles might be reversed. It might be Willow who's, you know, sort of the more vulnerable, like hurting over a guy. Because actually it was a bit like that at the start of the show. It seemed like Buffy was the more like kind of together type one.
Yes,
and Willow
more
was
confident.
More, yeah. So it's actually fun to see that reversed a little bit.
Sure. Not original, I'll grant you, but it's true. You know? Why waste time being all shy and worrying about some guy and if he's gonna laugh at you? Seize the moment, because tomorrow you might be dead. Oh, that's nice.
I also really like it. Shows how protective of Buffy Willow is and how protective of Buffy she's always been, you know, that she'll tell Parker off. And I think she's really good to Buffy in the aftermath of Parker. And it's just poor Buffy, like the poor girl. She needs to catch a break. She's got that moment in Be Bad when she's talking to Xander and she's all like, you know, I knew what he was like. And then she gets this look on her face and she's like, I'm a slut. And I'm like, oh, no, Buffy, no, you're not, sweetie. It's okay. It's fine. I think this season like really emphasizes that, just that upheaval once you leave the safety and security of high school and have to kind of enter the real world as an adult. And I think Buffy in particular, you see her arc this season, go through that.
It's a really good arc and a lot of the drama with them. It's sort of satisfying. Yeah, then there is this divide with them throughout the season. So then when they finally come back together, it makes that all the more satisfying, Buffy and Joyce, because they're going through a weird sort of phase as well. So
yeah, Joyce is missing for most of the season. Christine Sutherland was in Europe for most of season 4. She told Josh, she's like, I'm going overseas, so I won't be available. So that's why you only see her sparingly. And apparently he said, yeah, that's fine, but come back in season 5 because I need you in season 5 because we have big plans for your character in season 5. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that about her in season 4.
But it works. It works well for
it works for the storyline.
Yeah, that Buffy's also growing apart from her mother and from her home life. And I mean, I think it's a great scene, like, for example, in The Freshman, when she comes home and Joyce has, like, filled her room with, like, packing boxes. And Joyce is like, well, I didn't think you were going to be home. You've gone to college. And so, again, showing that disconnect that Buffy's feeling.
In Pang, she's sort of talking about how yeah, because she's in the town anyway, she doesn't have that fun experience of them, like people who aren't from the town, where they get to go home and see their families.
Yeah.
And they get, fresh cooking and that. It's almost because, yeah, in a way, you live so close anyway, so there's nothing special about it, and you probably see your family more often anyway.
The question on why she's living on campus when she could literally just be living at home and saving money and going to uni. But I understand that we need to have her on the campus for.
Yeah, well, that's true. Like practical reasons, you would think she would live at home, but I guess they like, some students like to have the student experience, and that's part of it. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, I do.
I guess especially in America as well, because again, I think college life in America is quite different to college life elsewhere. Like when you go to university here, you just go to your classes and you come home. You don't have like the college pride and stuff like that, like they do in America and stuff. So I think that is a bit of an American culture thing of going to college and experiencing like college life and stuff like that. But yeah, different cultures. We've got dorms here. You can live on campus here, but college life it's different here in America.
Yeah, no, I lived in a dorm, so we have it over here as well.
We have a great fight between Buffy and Spike at the end of the episode, the broad daylight fight, which is a fantastically choreographed fight. And yeah, it's probably really the last time that we see Buffy and Spike really face down, because it's not long after this that he gets chipped, and so they don't really have as many physical fights after this. But it's always great to have a fun choreographed fight. And I like the difference of this one actually being out in broad daylight. She's fighting a vampire in broad daylight, and that was fun. And I like the end scene of her sending the ring to Angel. I think that fits the characterization, and it is something I think that Buffy would do. She would, she'd send this off to Angel.
Yeah, that's logical, but once again, the whole gem of Amora, it adds once again stakes and intrigue, because it does make you wonder, what would you do if you were a vampire and you had that option? And it's sort of so perfect, the fact that Spike wants it so bad and then Angel ends up with it, and you sort of get that answer to the question on Angel, which is really intriguing. So it's a very strong episode for sure. All round good episode, despite how awkward it is to watch at times because of the park.
Well, there's the three relationships. So you've got Buffy and Parker, Harmony and Spike, but then you have Anya and Xander. And I don't feel that they fit with the other two. Like, the other two are very obviously bad relationships. Parker dumps Buffy and leads her on and everything, and Spike is horrible to Harmony, stakes her, and then leaves her. But Xander doesn't actually do anything to Anya in this episode. It's all Anya misinterpreting things. So when you have that final shot of like Buffy, Anya, and Harmony walking around campus looking sad, I don't really feel for Anya, because she's not really in the same situation as the other two. Xander hasn't done anything wrong in this episode. No. She comes, so I don't think that works out quite as well, because, and again, we're talking about like Anya's like literally just popped up in this episode, said, let's have sex, okay, I'm over you, and then decided that she's hurt because Xander's like, okay, and I don't know, for me it didn't work juxtaposed with the other two.
On it, where maybe she's the one who has used that, not exactly used Xander, because in a way with Anya, she doesn't know any better. This is her trying to learn about the world and what have you as a human, but it's just literally that thing. Because actually, just a sidebar, but like Emma Crawford was at the Vampire Ball when I went, and
oh, cool.
I actually asked her the question about like sort of like how did you feel how did you try and make it different to Cordelia, sort of thing? And she had a really good answer, then she said she didn't really see it as being Xander's love interest like Cordelia. She just saw Anna's just sort of like sex kind of thing, is the way she phrased it. And I thought that's the perfect answer. Xander was used in that situation, so a bit like Buffy was used, a bit like Harm. But yeah, you're right. Obviously, it does end with Anya. So yeah, you're probably right. Like, in a way, in that situation, she doesn't really have that much to be upset about. But it's just, I think it's just the character where I think she's obviously doesn't understand human relationships as a couple, and I think there are signs later in the season, in her own way, that Nonna does care about Xander.
Yeah, I think she does, but and again, we'll talk about this more as the season goes on, and especially in season 5. But for me, and again, this is just my opinion, I think a lot of people disagree with me, but I just feel like Xander really only kind of ended up in a relationship with Anya and fell for her because she was just there. You know, like, she's always there. Like, it's always Anya coming to Xander saying, "Oh, it's our 3-year anniversary," or "We should have sex because of this." And it's like, because like with Cordy, for example, even though they were teenagers, you could feel the mutual attraction, and you could feel the build up, and you could feel the thing from Xander's side. Whereas with Xander and Anya, for me, especially season 4, really just came across as Anya's just kind of hanging around. So therefore, Xander just kind of fell into a relationship with her, and I don't see a lot of growth in their relationship in season 4, and it really does seem to mostly just be physical. Now, when we watch season 5, I'm going to watch their relationship closely, because it's been a long time since I watched season 5, and if I remember correctly, they do get some development there, so I might start to feel differently. But at least in season 4, for me, it just, I wasn't feeling it.
If for season 4 you need that much development with their relationship, because it's a long-term relationship anyway, and I think for season 4, by the end, as I said, I think you could see that she did actually care about him. So there's obviously some growth there.
Yeah, well, for Anya, yes, but for Xander, like, I'm struggling to find a reason, like, as to why, like, Xander has gotten attached to Anya, and really the only reason I can come up with, and again, this sounds horrible, but this is how it came across to me, is proximity. She's just there, you know, because I mean, when he comes back in season 4, he obviously has not been thinking about her. You know, he hasn't been thinking about her or pining over her or anything. When she turns up, he's very surprised to see her. And then, like I said, it's always kind of her coming to him. So it's kind of like, I mean, he's an 18-year-old kid. Some pretty girl is coming to him and saying, "Hey, let's have sex." No 18-year-old straight guy is going to pass that up. But then it just, for me, I mean, I know that there's that scene in like in Hush, where he thinks that Spike has been feeding off her and he beats Spike up. So he obviously has grown to care about her, but there are relationships where you can just fall in love with someone just because they happen to be there and their proximity is always close to you. And that's what I feel with Xander and Anya, at least on Xander's side. And at least in this season, we see Willow and Tara, right? And we see them actually connect because they have the magic in common. They're attracted to one another. They have other things in common. They spend time together. It's actually both of them coming together. Whereas for me, watching this season, it was like Anya comes to Xander and Xander just kind of puts up with her because she's there, and over time he develops feelings for her because it's hard to keep sleeping with someone and not develop feelings for them.
Halloween
Spirit itself is fantastic. It's really fun. Got some great moments. I love all the costumes. I love Willow turning up as Joan of Arc and being all like, oh, plus she had that close personal relationship with God. And they turn to Oz and like, and who are you? And he's like, God. And it's just so good. And the haunted house is really fun as well.
No, they make it pretty scary, and it's a good sort of concept with their fears and stuff. And Buffy in the Little Red Riding Hood outfit is really great. Yeah, that's good because that's on theme with her character. And doesn't Joyce make it or something? Or
yes, this is one of the few scenes we see Joyce in. Yeah, she goes home. And she and Joyce actually have a really sweet little talk about, you know, moving to new places and forming new connections. And Joyce talks about how when she first moved to Sunnydale, it was really hard and she had to, you know, start it over and everything. And she's like, but now I've got like a good circle of friends. And yeah, it's actually a really nice, sweet moment between Buffy and her mum. And again, it works for what we've been talking about, this feeling of disconnect over the season. So it's nice to see Buffy kind of reconnect with her mum for a few minutes and have that little scene. And yeah, the Red Riding Hood costume is just adorable. She looks so cute.
Yeah, the costumes are great in this episode, and it has one of my favorite jokes of all of Buffy, which is the Fantasia joke with Xander
Love it.
getting the
Prepare to have your spines tingled and your goosebumps bumped by the terrifying Fantasia. And I love Oz. Maybe it's because everything we've witnessed, but elephants and tutus dancing just doesn't unnerve me the way it used to. Yeah, that is great. Phantasm. It's supposed to be phantasm.
Yeah, that's great.
Fear itself has got so many great moments. I love what you got in the basket, little girl. Weapons. Oh, okay. And then, when he's all like, I'm going as James Bond in case we get turned into our costumes again. I want to be cool double agent guy. It's like, yeah, you'll probably end up as cool head waiter guy. Also, one of my favorite Buffy and Giles exchanges ever, the sombrero.
Yeah,
moment when
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Oh my God. It's a sombrero, and it's on your head. And when he pulls the Frankenstein thing, he's just like, it's alive. Yeah, Giles. Everybody's Giles.
Giles trying to stay hip and with the kids is always great fun. Yeah, Anthony Stewart really goes for it. So good.
Yeah.
And iconic, obviously, the scene later with the chainsaw. Yeah, it's like,
We need to create a door. How are you going to do that? Hold up a chainsaw.
Yeah. That's kick-ass, and that ended up in the titles, I think.
Yes. I love it. Giles? Hey, everybody, it's Giles with a chainsaw. And this episode, of course, with Gaknar, absolutely fantastic. But one of my favorite lines is in the final bit of the episode, it's like, oh, the inscription, of course, I should have read. Why? What does it say? Actual size. And it's just so good.
It's so good. So good.
Don't taunt the fear demon. Why? Can he hurt me? No, it's just tacky.
And I just love the direction with them, because the way it's shot is it's building up to this really massive demon, isn't it?
Yes.
And then it's revealed, and them looking down is so perfect.
And then when he's like, Buffy, when it comes to slaying size, he's like, yeah, and she just stomps on him, and it's like, so good. Now, Fear itself is, I've talked about this, and I know you don't agree with me, but I do think it is a tiny little bit of a retread of Nightmares, because it does have that same theme of, fears coming to life, but it is done in a different enough. It's done in a different enough way, but I think it still feels fresh.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see how their fears have changed and, grown. I particularly feel bad for Oz when he starts to wolf out. That's a particularly heart-wrenching moment.
Yeah, that's pretty scary, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty intense. And Willow's and of course Xander feeling invisible. I think that, obviously is a big theme for him this season. Feeling like he's being left behind, like his friends are going on without him. And I think that's very true for people, afterwards who maybe don't go to college or don't go to university and pick a different path from their friends, and you start to splinter and feel like you're being left behind. Fear itself is a great episode. And of course, Anya in her bunny costume, which is just one of the best things ever. And the introduction of her whole running gag of being afraid of bunnies, which of course comes up several times over the series.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, whoever came up with that idea is a bit of a genius, but it once again, I think it highlights why I do enjoy her character, and I think I enjoy it because she is a bit like an alien compared with the rest of the world, and I think Emma Crawford plays her like that. So her sort of very dry, glib reactions to the rest of the world and just not getting our ways is very entertaining to watch, and becomes tender to watch as well. There are more human uses of it as well, but I mean, obviously, even if you're not a big Anya fan, you're going to enjoy that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's like it comes straight out of the gate with all of these great episodes. And it's really weird because it's always such a maligned season, and it's seen as one of the weakest seasons. And I think it's a pity that it actually does start so strong and then kind of fizzles away, or at least goes a bit up and down afterwards.
Because
the first run of episodes are great.
One thing I appreciate with the early episodes, and it is something where there is sort of an art to this, picking the episodes in the right order. I sort of appreciate them, the first two are I mean, living conditions, especially, that's the lighter one. But like Freshman is a setup episode in many ways. So I appreciate then you get a couple like that before the big first dramatic one, which is obviously the harsh light of day.
Mm.
So yeah, there's actually some good pacing at the start of the season where you get a couple of episodes where you're just getting to know where the characters are at this point.
Into the streak, because
We
episode
are,
5 is beer bad. Oh my. Okay, we get it. Alcohol bad. But like Buffy, considering these guys are in college, I've actually noticed that this show is very anti-alcohol. It's like they're college students. They're going to be getting drunk. That is okay. But yeah, and this episode in particular is so heavy. It's so on the nose with,
Yeah.
with the thing. That being said, it does have one of my favorite Xander lines. Nothing can defeat the penis. The way that he yells it. So
Well, I always get a laugh out of that, but that line is a good example of the episode, though, because I sort of think of this episode. I think I said this when I watched it on stream. I sort of see it as a cross between something like Porky's and like Californian Man, something like that. Because it does seem to come from an infantile mind. And
definitely.
at this point, I've got to talk about Tracy Forbes, who writes it, because he was brought onto the writing staff for the season, and he writes 3 episodes.
Okay.
Now, you can see a theme when I say the 3 episodes. So it's this one, it's Something Blue, and then it's Where the Wild Things Are.
Oh,
So
okay.
he's basically written 2 of the worst Buffy episodes ever.
And then one of the better ones.
Yeah, Something Blue's enjoyable. But yeah, I mean, maybe he just got lucky with that one. Maybe things fell into place. But yeah. So, but yeah, it's sort of funny that he was around, and I guess for this season, and then they said thank you, but no thank you after what you produced for season 4.
Yeah. This. I think what you said is right. This is just so infantile and just really kind of dumb, broad frat humor in this episode, Like, I kind of started to tune out while I was watching it because I was like, I cannot watch this stupidity. This is really driving me nuts. I feel like my IQ is dropping as I watch this. Oh, God. It's just not good.
And this is one which is often quoted as one of the worst episodes ever, and because there's a side of me that wants to enjoy it on a very like dumb B-movie level, but I just can't. Like, even the caveman Buffy stuff, I don't find it that entertaining.
No, me either.
I think it's very hard to watch the way Xander's treated in this episode by those awful frat guys.
Absolutely.
That's very hard to watch, and
yeah,
there's very little redeeming about it. It's a really
bad episode,
and it's a very lame, the whole beer thing and the motivations of the barman. I think it's just very lame. Like, they don't really convince me.
No, I
on
agree.
That motivation.
Yeah.
And like we said, definitely the highlight is the Willow scene with Parker. That is definitely
So you have Willow Parker. That's like a great scene in like a really shit episode. And of course, even though I don't love Cavewoman Buffy, seeing her club Parker on the head is fun. But that's about it.
Well, let me ask you about that though, because it is fun, but some people would say that's a bit of a cop-out where she just gets to do that and that's her redemption. Not redemption, but that's
her closure.
Like, that's the way she gets the best of Parker. Like, for some, that's a little bit of a cop-out, but then I don't know what else you would have done.
Buffy's fixation on Parker has stopped being about like her actually liking him and more about that fantasy we create where someone's rejected us, where we suddenly have that fantasy of them realizing that they were wrong, because you see her have that fantasy in class. But I
Yeah.
think deep down she knows that she's over him and that he's a bad guy. And I think, and again, this could be giving the episode way too much credit, but I did notice that even when Buffy is in cave woman mode, she still has the instincts of Buffy. She still goes to save people. She still saves Willow. So I think that end thing is supposed to be like, through the cavemen, Buffy is saying this is a bad guy, and so the cave woman's like, bad guy, must be hit, and hits him on the head, you know. So I think it's supposed to show that if you strip Buffy down to her base instinct, she knows that Parker's a bad guy and she's gonna take him out. So I don't mind that was the end of it, because I think that it sets it up enough that, like, yeah, it maybe could have been done a little bit better, but then again, so could this entire episode. So we could just put it down to the bad writing of this episode. But I do get where people are coming from. Like, that is an interesting point, but it was okay for me, because I think by this point I was like, we just get rid of Parker. I'm sick of him. Like, if this is the end of it, then I'm happy.
Yeah, and maybe Willow did the work for Buffy, a lot of the work, the way she handled him, which was really good. It's sort of a shame they had to bring him back for that one scene in the Initiative, and I guess it was it's a beat just to show how much Riley cares for Buffy. But it's anyway. But
what I did find fun about Beer Bad, though, is it has an actor I recognized, Cal Penn. He's an Indian actor who has been in quite a few things, and this was one of the Harold and Kumar would be the thing that he's most well known for.
Okay.
But I saw him in this, and I was like, oh, this must have been one of his like earliest roles when he was first making the rounds around Hollywood. But yeah, he plays one of the beer dudes.
He does,
so I thought that was fun seeing.
He's in Angel as well, isn't he? An episode of Angel in season 3.
Actually. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I think he's the one Lila's using to like do.
Yes, the weird head dude. Yes.
Yeah, that's him.
Slightly better role, slightly meatier role than just drunk crack guy. But Beer Bad is so bad, and knowing that this guy also wrote Where the Wild Things Are, because oh my god, when I was watching that episode, I was like, who wrote this? Oh my god, such a bad episode. But yeah, so Beer Bad kind of ends the good streak, but then it picks back up again with Wild at Heart, which I think is a really fun episode, and obviously a heartbreaking episode. Let me ask you something. What do you think of the actress who plays Veruca?
I think she's pretty bad.
Yeah, okay, good. We're in the same boat.
Yeah, I mean, probably the fact she's bad means she served the purpose, in the sense she's meant to be shallow, and that's the character. Yeah. And they were going for that sort of Vixen style character, but yeah, no, she was bad and definitely the weak point of the episode. But the episode definitely highlights what a great dramatic actress Alison Hannigan can be.
I know.
Yeah, I get so sad every time I watch that one, because I've raised this before. Like, a lot of times people think of her more for her comedy, and a lot of people would say when it comes to dramatic acting, there's better examples on Buffy, but like episodes like this really prove that she can do the dramatic stuff as well. She really knocks it out of the park, and you can see this is a girl. Her sort of world is like crashing down around her. It's really painful to watch.
Yeah, it's such a pity that they didn't cast Veruca better, because if they had, she could have been a really interesting character, and this whole connection that she and Oz have, which I think the first time he ever sees her is actually in living conditions, you know, so she's actually planted in the series quite early. And this is what I mean about, I'm pretty sure they had a whole storyline worked out for Oz that they wanted to explore, but then Seth left, so they had to kind of wrap it all up in this episode. But I think it is interesting, this idea that Oz can connect with another werewolf simply because they are both werewolves. You know, the first time they see each other, they both kind of turn around and look at each other without actually knowing. And, you know, when she's performing on stage, which, is this chick the worst lip syncer or what? Like,
well, I think that's another thing I was going to rate. I mean, not just that she's lip syncing, but I actually don't think she's got that good a voice. I mean, It might not have been her anyway, assuming
No, I
she
think she's
was
been
lip
dubbed.
sync. Yeah,
But
I didn't
it's
actually.
not
I mean,
great.
obviously they're going for a certain style, which I think was quite popular around that time. But
Yeah.
it was. I sort of think maybe they cast someone like her because the idea is that it could be any girl. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously she
true.
fits the wild sort of theme, but I think the idea is then that could be anyone, but just the fact that it's a werewolf like Oz, it's tapping into something else.
Well done episode. Like you said, Allison is so good. And I think, again, it gives us a hint for Willow's future development when she goes to cast the revenge spell on Veruca and Oz. Again, showing her falling back on magic, you know, and instantly going for revenge. These are things we've seen in Willow before that we will see again later on in the series. And I think that that is, again, just another little bit of like really good characterization for Willow, building on the magic arc. Alison Hannigan and Sarah Michelle Gellar are two of like the best criers on TV. Like when they cry, you just your heart just hurts for them, you know. And Alison just sobbing at the end of that episode is just, it's heartbreaking for Oz in this episode, because I think this werewolf side of him is something that he can't share with anyone, and no one's really going to understand. And I think that's what they were trying to do with Veruca, showing that he's connected with someone who's like him. And if they kept Seth Green around this season, I think that could have been a very interesting angle, like I was saying before, of this very calm zen person having this beast inside of them. Like we've seen the dual dichotomy a little bit with Angel and Angelus, but Angel's a dark person anyway, so it's not that different. But someone like Oz to have that sort of monstrosity inside of him, I think could have been a really interesting story beat. But as it is, I don't hate the way it plays out, and I don't feel dissatisfied with Oz. I just kind of wish that we had gotten more. It is the initiative, which is where we really get introduced to that.
I could disagree with that slump comment. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a very different episode to Wild at Heart, but I would say the initiative episode is just as good in its own way. Like
it does have
maybe
some fun
even
stuff,
a little bit, better. But so I think once again the introduction of this idea and the reveal, because when you see them around campus and they're dressed as soldiers, there's definitely intrigue. You're definitely wondering, oh, what's going on here? And I do like a lot of the stuff with the reveal in the initiative, them in this big underground there, and the sort of just the contrast between them coming off as normal, like college kids, and then suddenly they go into this high-tech underworld there. The Spike Willow scene is a standout in the initiative. I think that's a great scene.
Fair enough. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's a very well written scene, and I think that James and Allison work really well together. I just get mildly uncomfortable about her reassuring him that, you know, like it plays out kind of weird, because the original, like when he first comes to her room, that 100% is written to look like a rape scene, and there's no doubt about it that they wrote that to look like a sexual assault. I know it's not, but it's written to look like it. But then all of a sudden you have Willow being like, "Oh, I'm not the kind of girl the vampires like to bite." It's like, really, Willow? That's where I mean, I know that you've lost Oz, but I don't know.
Well, I know, but it's comedy, isn't it? And
it is.
And also, I think it just shows the side of Willow then, because as the season goes on, she's actually the one who is least aggressive towards Spike. She's the one who's actually more, it's not right to kill him sort of thing. But
yeah, I don't buy that, by the way. We're going to talk about that again.
No,
even though I don't mind Spike this season, he's really got some heavy plot armor on. Like serious plot armor. Sometimes it gets to the point of being ridiculous. It's like, okay, why haven't you killed him? This doesn't make any sense.
Well, the reason is because he's not really a threat. So.
Yeah, I know he's got the chip, but it's like, if you put a chip in Ted Bundy, you'd still want to kill him. I'm just saying, you know, like, he's basically a serial killer.
No, you wouldn't.
Jail.
You would want to send him to jail. But...
I don't know. If it's Ted Bundy, I think you'd want to kill him.
I know, but, you know, we're obviously talking about morality here, and
Yeah, and I mean, if
like,
anything, this is the best opportunity to kill him when he's completely defenseless and you can get in and do it nice and quick. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. He's gone. Spike's eliminated. Because the other thing is, like, yeah, he's got the chip, but they don't know how long that's going to keep working. They don't know if it could suddenly malfunction. He's still dangerous. And again, I think it just works if you take it on surface level, but if you look a little too hard, you start to see that Spike is just basically driving an armored car this season of plot armor, because there are just so many options where they could have killed him and they don't.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that, but like I think for the sake of drama, it's the right decision, and I do think the chip, for me anyways, is a storyline I'm sold on, because over the course of the next few seasons they do some really interesting things, and they really play with it. Where is he going to get the chip out this time? How's he going to change? And they expand on the rules, because that is, to defend season 6 a little bit here, that is one of the things I like about what they do in season 6.
An interesting way to neuter Spike, you know. Obviously at this point they didn't want to give him just a soul and be an angel carbon copy, so I do think it was an interesting way to neutralize the character. And because the initiative is in season 4, it obviously worked with the entire arc. I just don't quite buy that they wouldn't have killed him, because he's still William the Bloody, you know. I mean, if you put a chip in Angelus, you'd still probably want to kill Angelus, you know. So while I do understand, like, I think it does work for the season, but like I said, when you've watched Buffy as many times as I have and you start to look a little too close, you do start to see things that make you go, But like I said, this is probably the season of Buffy where I find Spike the most entertaining, and I like Spike's placement within the Scoobies the most, because I really do like that he works as like the enemy from within the group. Like, he's not trying to get along with the Scoobies, you know, he's not trying to be one of them at this point. In fact, he tries to cause trouble whenever he can, you know, so he is definitely the antagonistic teammate, and that's where I think Spike works best. And we will definitely talk more about this in season 5 and the direction they take his character. But I think if they kept Spike as this kind of character, he would have been a better character, because he is so funny in this season. Just the havoc that he wreaks, some of the lines that he has, you know, when he tries to kill himself, like, that is great. When Willow and Xander come in and find him like trying to stake himself, it's so good. So like, this season, probably my favorite Spike season, because he's just such a fun character.
Well, it's a good shout. I mean, obviously, a lot of people would say like maybe season 2.
Season 2, yeah.
It's obviously a good shout. I think he does have a good season this season, and they definitely take him in a fresh direction. That works quite well. But
I also do love in this episode when he wakes up in the initiative, he immediately thinks that it's Buffy. He's like, I always wondered what that bitch would do if she got some funding.
I forgot about that. That's pretty funny.
The initiative also has the start of the Buffy and Riley relationship, which, like I said, this season I actually don't mind. I think Riley's attempts at flirting with Buffy are horribly awkward and also kind of cute, especially when he just kind of picks up the cheese cube and he's like, cheese? And she's like, what? Other one, when they're out hunting for Spike, and you know, Riley's like, he finds her on the park bench. He's like, are you drunk? And she's like, yes, go report me. And he's like, come on, I'm taking you home. And she's like, well, maybe I'm going to take you home. And they have this great little back and forth. So at this point, I do want to make actually like one of my complaints with Riley this season. I think sometimes he's too old-fashioned, and I think there is a little bit of sexism with him and Buffy. Where he does assume that the girl can't look after herself. So that is something that put me off a bit. Oh, I hear you. And I cannot believe I'm about to defend Riley's sexism. But I guess in this moment, he is, as far as he knows, Buffy is just a regular college student. He knows that there is a very dangerous vampire out there, and he sees this tiny, petite little blonde thing sitting on a bench by herself. I'd probably assume that she needed help too, but I do agree that it's definitely coming more from like a sexist kind of like, oh, because I think Buffy even says that. She even says to Riley, what, you think that men can take care of themselves and women need help? And he's like, yes. And she's like, that is so Teutonic. And I'm like, yeah, that's a bit shit, Riley. And you do see that with Riley, especially, again, when we get to season 5, we'll have some big talks about Riley. But I agree that he's got that kind of Southern sexism, I'm the chivalrous man kind of thing going on.
Because I think your explanation for it does work. It's just some of the lines in the actual scene paints it as a bit, patronising and racist. Not racist, sorry, sexist.
Sexist.
Damn, I'm really grouping him in tonight. But decent character arc this season with Riley, because New Moon Rising. You get a little bit of him being a little bit of a bigot in there, and he then learns to grow out of that. So that's quite nice.
Yeah.
I like the initiative overall.
No, fair enough. I think for me, again, because I'm not that taken with the initiative as a whole and like the arc in general, so like, really any episodes that kind of deal with them. Yeah. But however, we are entering a run of 3 of my favorite episodes of the season, and that's Pangs, Something Blue, and Hush. And I think those 3
that's a really good run of episodes.
Yeah, I think they really showcase the strength of this season and what the writing can do and what the characters can do. We get, obviously, with Pangs, we get the start of the antagonist Spike as part of the Scoobies, which I do find very funny. Yeah, I think he's really funny in Pangs.
You made a bear.
One of my favorite lines. So good.
Yeah, and just him reacting to everything, like the arrows, and then him trying to play. Yeah, I was on your side. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. He's like, I was rooting for you, mate. I love it. And poor Xander with his syphilis.
Yeah. That's so
I love it. He's like, the guy just rises up and infects the first guy he sees with syphilis. That's not fair. And I love Anya's words of encouragement. Oh, it won't kill you. You'll go insane and blind, but it won't kill you. Smallpox would have. It's like, oh dear. I think Pain is just a really fun episode. I think I love Giles and Willow arguing over, whether or not it should be right to go after the Native Americans, and Willow's whole, indignation about Thanksgiving as a whole, which, as I understand, is actually quite a thing in America. They're quite divided on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And the racial implications. Again, I don't think the episode maybe handles the racial side of things all that well. It's Buffy. It doesn't always tackle those sorts of issues. But, at least it shines a light on it.
The characters debate it, and it at least raises the topic. Like, I think that's what they were going for without... Yeah. They maybe felt as a standalone episode, there wasn't room to do more with it.
No, and there really is, and that's the thing. Like when you raise these sorts of issues, it's like, do we really want to write a whole episode bogged down and racial injustice and going into it? Sometimes it doesn't need to sometimes you don't need to look that hard at it. And I think that's what this episode was going for. And of course, we get a great crossover here with Angel being in town because. At the end of the previous Angel episode, Doyle has the vision of Buffy and sends Angel to town. And what I love in this episode is it demonstrates something that I absolutely love about the Angel ship. And that's the fact that Buffy can sense him. And she's always been like that. She's always been able to sense him. So I love all those moments where she's just like, okay, something is here, but she doesn't quite know what it is. And I just think that's a great little continuation of their relationship.
And what I enjoy with the Angel stuff is this when everyone keeps assuming he's gone bad.
That he's evil?
Yeah. Why do people keep
saying evil again?
Because he grabs Willow at one point in the coffee shop.
You're evil. I also love Willow being like, so does Cordelia work for you? Because that's going to be... And I love when Willow and Giles are talking later and they're like, Angel, I saw him too. And Giles is like, oh, that's not terribly stealthy of him. And Willow's like, yeah, I think he's losing his edge. Oh, and Anya's line. So this is Angel, huh? He's large and glowery.
Do the Buffy Angel drama to sort of have this fun little cameo where he's there, he's watching over her, but he's not actually going to...
Let's face it, this is kind of what he does. I mean, I love Angel. I really do. He's my favorite Buffy character. But he's got a little bit of Edward Cullen going on. Like, the guy's got to stop skulking in the shadows and being a bit of a creeper. Like, unfortunately, he does this. And I do like that in I Will Remember You, Buffy basically tells him, you suck. you should not do this to me. But yeah, I think Pangs is such a great episode. It's got so many moments.
So well written.
The bicycle.
Yeah, that's a little gem of a scene. Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those episodes, like, every character is on top form in this episode.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
There's not a weak character. And yeah, I do enjoy at the beginning on when she's disappointed and she's not seeing more of Xander digging. That's really funny.
Yeah, when the D starts, she's like, I don't want to see her dig. Xander's supposed to dig. I came to see Xander dig.
Yeah.
And
well,
he's
this
like,
bites. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm imagining having sex with him right now. Oh, it's like imagining Xander is very powerful. And it's just, yeah, that's great. I also love her interpretation of Thanksgiving when she calls it a ritual sacrifice. And Buffy's like, it's not really a one of those. And she's like, in order to celebrate a victory, you kill and roast an animal. It's a sacrifice with pie. And I'm like, yeah, kind of is. Yeah.
Yeah, and Buffy's really good in this episode. Her
Buffy's
trying to get
adorable.
everyone together.
Mm-hmm. And the way she's just trying to do all the cooking. Needs more condensed milk. And you don't have a ricer? How can you not have a ricer? It's like, well, do you have one? I don't know. What is a ricer?
And by the way, I have no idea what a ricer is. I mean, I'm assuming it does what it says on the tin, but like I've never heard.
It's a kitchen utensil where you put the potato in it, you squeeze it, and the potato comes out as like stringy mashed potatoes. So yeah. Plus, I'm guessing Giles's little comment about liking mushy peas is a little British reference, because I know you guys love your mushy peas.
Well, we do like our mushy peas. Yeah.
To focus more on like Hush and Something Blue, because it comes, around the same time. And I think Pangs gets a bit overlooked, but I think it's just such a fun episode. And yeah, like you said before, we've got to repeat it again because it's such a great line. A bear? You made a bear! I didn't mean to. Undo it! I just love how alarmed Spike is. Like, he's so horrified. When, I guess because a bear could just eat him. And
your knife can kill you.
A bear! You made a bear!
I didn't mean to.
Undo it! Undo it!
The cool actor James Masters, it's because when he's like reacting in the chair, he's tied up and he's just trying to dodge the arrows. He's so good in that scene.
Yeah, it is fantastic.
And like you said, this is the first episode where he's really planting those seeds.
Yeah.
And he's making those arguments like, this is what countries do, they win.
You won. No, you don't hear. You don't hear so and so coming saying, "Okay, I conquered. I felt really bad about it." That's when Giles is like, "I made many of these points earlier, but no one listens to me." So yeah, no, Spike in Pangs, absolutely hilarious. At one point, I think Buffy's like tying him up, and he's like, "Hey, what's circulation?" She's like, "You don't have circulation," and he's like, "It's a figure of speech." And it's like, "You're an idiot." Do you think Xander said that on purpose, or do you think he's just being Xander and he's stupid and said it by accident?
He said it by accident.
Oh, okay, so
you could
Xander
read it the other way.
Yeah, because it's Xander. You never know. And as much as I love him,
sometimes he does do.
Yeah, he's such a dick when it comes to Angel. So I can actually see him saying that on purpose just to like get a little dig in because he's Xander. But I can also see him just saying it stupidly because he's Xander. So either way, it works, I think.
Yeah, I think just because it felt like a natural thing and it was like the end of the episode, I just read it as it was like an accident. Because in a way, it makes it a bit more funny if it was an accident, I think, rather than if it's just him being a douche type thing.
But that last shot of all of them, just kind of the way it's the angle it's filmed at, just everything is so fantastic. And Something Blue and Hush, which I think are honestly, Something Blue and Hush, especially Hush, obviously, are two of the best episodes of this season. Just such strong episodes, so much fun. So we should look at Something Blue first, which obviously Willow still, again, and I think this episode is another great episode for Willow, showing the progress of her magic and you know the way she's not quite in control of it. Again, it shows that kind of vengeful side that Willow has, that side that wants to, well, not so much vengeful as like that reckless side of Willow that sees an easy way out and says, I'll take the easy way out rather than working through the pain. Another episode that's very anti-alcohol, because the way they all go off at Willow when she's drunk at the Bronze is a little over the top.
I thought, yeah, I mean, that was harsh. I can understand it more in Beer Bad just because that's the gimmick of the episode and that's the way they do this. But in that case, I think, yeah, they need to be a bit more understanding of someone who's going through what she is.
It's just so weird that they are so... Yeah, but I just find it so odd that they're so judgy of Willow drinking a single beer when it's like, you guys are 18/19 years old. You're in college. Isn't this the time that you should be drinking? I mean, not that you should be. I'm not saying that you have to drink. I'm just saying you're in an environment and you're at an age where I just wouldn't think this sort of judgment when it comes to drinking. And I think this is maybe the writers coming into the scripts.
Buffy as being a progressive show. And I mean, obviously some of this stuff could be just for the metaphor. A lot of conventions, like if you have sex in a horror movie, you're probably going to die. If you're a virgin, you're probably going to live. But yeah, it's sort of interesting when you look a bit deeper into this stuff. And yeah, just the fact that religion is actually a big part of Buffy as well. Like she wears the cross, progressive, especially for the time show. And yet there are these interesting moments where it feels a little bit conservative or a little bit... I mean, maybe they are quite... The people who wrote the show are quite religious. I don't know, but you wouldn't have thought so in a way.
Yeah, I'm wondering also if maybe it might have had something to do with the network. This was when Buffy was airing on the WB, and the WB was a very teen-centered network. So maybe it was that if they were going to put alcohol on screen, you had to have it portrayed in a negative way. You know, like kind of similar to like the Hays Code back in the day. Like maybe it was like one of those things, like we don't want to encourage the younger. It just seemed really weird, you know, to me that they're so judgmental about her drinking one beer when they're literally at the age and in the kind of setting where you would be drinking a bit more. And I mean, what are they going to do? Go to college parties and not drink? That's just really bizarre and doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
I mean, obviously in that scene, Willow is actually drunk, so the implication is she's had more than one beer. But no, I agree with you. They are too harsh on her. Like it comes from a good place because I think they're obviously concerned about her. But I think they should be more understanding,
more open. Yeah, definitely. I think they're all a little bit harsh with Willow in this episode. You know, like she's definitely still going through some stuff, and they're all like, when Xander's like, "Oh, Willow and her poor me mood swings." I'm like, dude, her boyfriend cheated on her and then dumped her. Like, I think she's allowed to grieve about that for a little bit. And I know that Willow gets a little bit nasty, but yeah, I don't know. I just think about the leeway they gave Buffy with Parker, who she only knew for like a week, but then Willow, who's been with Oz for like 2 years, doesn't get the same kind of consideration. It felt a little odd to me.
Characters go to the Bronze for the last 3-4 seasons.
Yeah.
So the assumption is that they've had the odd beer there. And it's so funny because they always have them in those blue and red cups. So maybe you don't actually quite see them. It's meant to be beer, but
it is a bit odd.
The implication is that the teens are going there to have beers, or if it's partly this writer, because again, this is Tracy Forbes, as I said.
Yes.
And I do, and there's a bit of inconsistency with his other episode, amongst how shitty that episode is anyway. But I mean, there's other. I did actually spot an inconsistency in that episode, but I'm wondering if it is the thing where he's this writer who's been brought in and he really didn't watch the show before he was brought in and doesn't... Because even though I like this episode like you do, maybe some of the Willow stuff is down to that, like him not understanding the character or the characters around her.
Yeah. That stuff aside, though, this episode is hilarious and it has so many laugh out loud moments. First of all, we get Spike chained up in the bathtub, which is a great visual.
That's very funny.
The Kiss the Librarian mug is particularly good. I do like that.
Yeah, I want that. That's a great.
I love when he's like yelling at Giles and he's like, "Passions is on. Timmy's down the bloody well. And if you make me miss it," and Giles is like, "You're what? lick me to death. And so I love that. And of course, when the spell starts to go awry, I think some of the humor is a little bit like, you can see now that you've told me that it's written by the same guy who did Beer Bad, I can see a little bit of that creep in. But I think some of the humor in this and the situations are just hilarious. Buffy and Spike being engaged while still actively hating each other is just so funny, and like their interactions have some of my favorite lines. Like, I absolutely love when they're talking about the invitations and Buffy's like, now do you want to be Spike or William the Bloody, because either way it's going to look majorly weird. It's like, yes, well, Buffy just gives it that touch of elegance. And then, what's wrong with Buffy? Such a good question. And Giles going blind, and Xander being the demon magnet, like all of that is just, it's really fun, and I think it makes for a really fun, entertaining episode.
Yeah, no, it's fun. It's a good one-off episode. Also, it's the first appearance of the Hothram as well.
Second appearance. We see him in season 3. Remember?
Oh, which episode? I forget now.
The Wish. No, not with Doppelgangland. We see him right at the beginning of Doppelgangland.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
But this is the first time we really get to see him. And I do love the subversion of, we think he's come to, like, kill Willow, but he's actually come to offer her a job.
Pretty much,
which is fantastic.
That's good, yeah.
How powerful Willow actually is without really knowing her own power, you know. De Hoffren, you know, points out how her spell is like so powerful, and they do have this theme, and we see it a bit in the later seasons of Willow having this power but not really knowing how to harness and use it. And obviously we see it get out of control in this episode. So I think it's another really good stepping stone, another brick laid in the foundation of Willow's magic arc, and, you know, showing her once again using magic recklessly. Oh, and it has that absolutely fantastic moment with Amy, like as if that wasn't like one of like the most brilliant moments, where Willow's just like, one day she's a normal girl, and poof, there's Amy behind her, and then 2 seconds later, and the next, she's a rat. And I just thought it was so great that they brought Elizabeth like back for just that 2-second scene.
Yeah,
just so much fun. So yeah, I think that Something Blue just, and again, it's one of those episodes that like the whole fandom does tend to really like. I think because it is just like a really fun episode. And of course, all the Buffy fans absolutely loved this episode because this was their first little glimpse into a possible Spike and Buffy hookup, and
offer him as a character. He's another
me too.
Little
He's
gem.
Fun.
Because I think the actor makes him funny enough, but he also has a threat to him as well. Like there is a presence. Yeah. Because like, particularly in the season 7 episode, I'm thinking of, he's really scary in that episode.
I know.
So I think he gets a good balance of being quite menacing, but also being really funny and having good lines. So
his actor also plays the creepy doctor from the episode of Angel, where that woman's been being stalked by the doctor. That's him. So we know that he can definitely play sinister and creepy well. But yeah, he's got that comedic. He's got that combination that so many Buffy villains do have, where they can be really comedic, but then they can switch, and instantly you're like, oh, okay, no, they're actually quite threatening. And Hush, which I think is really just the pinnacle of this season, and honestly, one of the best Buffy episodes, I think, in general, because Hush is just, I mean, this episode, I think what I love the most about this episode is that they take away the characters' voices, and yet they're all still completely in character, even without dialogue. And I just think, how do you do that? How do you write a script and have actors that are so good that without any lines of dialogue, they are still 100% them? Like the classroom scene with Giles and the and the things, you know, everything so about good. That. From Anya sitting there with the popcorn, to the horrifying, like, bloody drawings that Giles has drawn, to, of course, Buffy's whole little, you know, the misdirection and everything. So good. And the gentlemen. Aren't the gentlemen just some of the best villains?
Yeah, they're so scary, and it's such a scary episode at times. And yeah, it's a great idea for an episode, a great concept, and one of the great examples of this show really playing with the form and format, and Yeah, it's once again on theme, and it does dip its toe into like exploring a world where we can't communicate like through using our voices, and just how different that makes everyday life. Because I do like that they have people selling like whiteboards, like those small, because you can totally imagine that happening. Like
100%. There's
some
always
cynical
someone,
it's like,
wanting to capitalize on a disaster.
Post-apocalyptic, it suddenly makes everything in the town. I really like how, suddenly the town all looks a lot more like dead and spacious. Yeah, some great direction, and one of the best horror scenes in that episode is the one with Olivia at the window. You know, when they pop up. That's really scary.
That still creeps me out even to this day. And of course, the lead gentleman is played by the wonderful Doug Jones, who is just, I love Doug Jones. And the gentlemen themselves, again, so scary, but they're also kind of funny, you know, like in the towers when they're showing off the hearts and they're like applauding, and the main one's like, oh, stop, you know, and they're just, they're just kind of funny while they're also terrifying. I think it's great. But I was going to say, because you mentioned how this episode really focuses on communication, I like that it shows that sometimes words get in the way, because we see Buffy and Riley trying to connect with each other, but they keep, messing up and stepping into, like, because, they're both trying to hide their secrets. But then when they don't have any words, that's when they finally first kiss. Because if you finally take away that language barrier, all you have are physical gestures. So I really like that. And there's all sorts of comedic stuff in this episode. Spike moving in with Xander is one of the funniest things ever. And one of my favorite scenes is where Xander's like tying him up, and he's all like, yeah, like I'd bite you. And Xander's like, you better believe it, pal. I'm moist and delicious. And then I love Spike doing the, Xander, don't you care about me? We never talk, Xander. And I love when Xander wakes up, he immediately thinks that Spike did something to him. He's like, you. Spike's like, so good.
Yeah, because those characters, they just hate each other so much. So it's the perfect situation.
Perfect setup.
Because also the scene where Giles says then he's got to move in with that's so like they're competing. It's like, I don't want to move in with him, and it's like that's hardly my ideal fantasy either. Because I love Xander and Anna walk in and they're already arguing, and Giles like, well, yeah, but why is it here, sort of thing.
Yes. And one of my favorite Anya lines: I have a friend coming in from out of town, and I'd like to be alone. Oh, you mean an orgasm friend? Yes, that's exactly the most important thing you could have said. Love it. So, yeah, I mean, everything about her. Oh, and Tara. This is the first episode that we
the debut of Tara. Yeah.
A great debut in Willow's little Wicca group that apparently all they do is have bake sales. They're hilarious, those guys.
Yeah. Willow's reaction to that is really funny. And yeah, I will say with Tara, because I think she's grown on me this time around, like in the season, because I know a lot of people think she has a rough start where she's a bit of a like a stereotype of like an awkward sort of goth style. Not exactly goth, but she has that vibe. Where,
Tara, her behavior retrospectively is more, because for me, she definitely exhibits sign of someone who's come from a oppressed and abusive household. Her mannerisms, the way she speaks, the way she shies away as soon as someone kind of confronts her, I think that's all signs of like where she's come from and what she's escaped. And obviously when we get to season 5 and the particular episode where we get to see her background, but I really love in this episode that you see that she and Willow do have this connection, when they first use their magic together to move the door is a great moment to show that she's going to become someone significant to Willow. And I think their little talk at the end is really sweet, where they, talk about the Wicca group and how stupid they are. And
Amber Benson is such a good actress. I think she really makes you like Tara from the off, really.
Yeah, and also, in what universe is Amber Benson fat? Okay, like seriously, the amount of crap she got when she first came on this show about being chunky and overweight. I'm like, she's not even overweight. She basically looks like a normal
She
human
looks
girl.
normal,
She
yeah.
looks
So
normal.
that might be that
And I
might
mean, they
be
don't
the
dress
issue.
her in the most flattering style either. But again, I think that's more to do with showing that her character is still quite repressed. But no,
Yeah.
Amber Benson, like when Buffy season 4 first aired, and it was revealed that she was going to be romantically involved with Willow, there was a huge outrage because we were not as open-minded about this stuff as we are now.
Yeah.
And a lot of that outrage was aimed at Amber, and she got a lot of hate saying that she was fat, saying that she was chunky, saying that she was unattractive. And she actually ended up having to go onto like the posting board that was quite active at the time, the Bronze, and talk about, how hurtful it was and everything. So yeah, Tara, it's really weird to think how far we've come in such a short time. I mean, 20 years is really not that long. And to look at the type of queer relationships that we have on TV now, back then, I mean, it was so subtle that a lot of fans didn't even realize it was going to be romantic until New Moon Rising, when they finally confirmed that it was a lesbian relationship. And yeah, people were outraged, absolutely outraged. It was really bad.
Well, okay, no, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that. I mean, I guess I'm not surprised, but because of the time, but no, that's terrible, especially since so much of it was aimed at her, I mean, that's really harsh on someone who's just debuted on the show and everything, trying to find her feet. That's really hard. Because it's one thing fans not liking a character and not accepting them. That's different because that's to do with the character.
That happens, you can't love every character. Sometimes there's going to be characters that you don't like. This was very different. Yeah, and again, like I said, it really shows how far we have actually come.
Yeah. But also, because, I mean, speaking of New Moon Rising, famously, apparently the network didn't want to see them kiss, apparently.
No,
that's why
they were
seen the way. And it works for the scene anyway, but it's just, come on,
It does. But it did give them an interesting way to work the Willow and Tara relationship in. And I do like the way they use the magic. And this is why I don't think, and we're going to return to this in season 6, but this is why I don't think the magic is drugs metaphor works, because we've already used it as a metaphor before. But for Willow and Tara, very much, the magic is their metaphor for their relationship. When they talk about doing spells together, and the spell they cast in Who Are You was actually written to look like their first sex scene. So, it's very, they're glistening and they're panting, and Willow essentially has what looks like an orgasm at the end of it. So I think the fact that they weren't allowed to show them being too physical meant that they had to come up with very creative ways to show the relationship progressing. And I think that became very interesting. But I do think that it's really stupid that we weren't allowed to have them kiss back then. Willow and Tara relationship, I think over season 4, the way it's subtly built up is really gorgeous.
Different phase in Willow's life now. So that's on, because it's like the whole discussion of like, well, is her true partner Oz? Is her true partner? But what it shows is that neither one was like not her true partner. It just shows that Oz was the right partner at that phase in her life, and Tara's now the right partner in. That's the way things work. Sometimes with life, you are with someone you love, but circumstances just break you up, and it doesn't mean that this new relationship isn't valid. So,
view Willow as bisexual or a lesbian?
Bisexual.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, just because I think it follows on from her having a straight relationship. So I think there's nothing to suggest she wouldn't be bisexual.
Yeah. People take contention with it because she says gay now later on in the series. She identifies as gay, and anytime someone points that out, I want to say, yeah, honeys, we could barely say gay on TV, let alone bisexual. Okay, Willow being with a girl was such a point of contention, as I've just explained, that them trying to say that she was bisexual, there was no way in hell they could ever have said that, all right? So I think the writing of Willow's character really just comes down to the time. And if you guys are interested, let me give myself a little self-plug. I actually have a video on my channel that explores this very topic, whether or not Willow is bisexual or gay, and talking about how really both sides work because the writing really leaves it up to the point that if you wanted to believe that she was a lesbian and that Oz was just comp het, then you could. But if you want to believe that she's bi, which I personally do, because it's not just Oz that she shows attraction to. She's attracted to Xander. She's attracted to Giles. She even talks about finding Dracula sexy in season 5. So for me, she's definitely bi. But they couldn't say bisexual back then because, like I said, you could barely say gay back then. So yeah, but that's interesting. So we're on the same page when it comes to Willow's sexuality.
That's the other thing, because like you said, people do get upset then they don't use the term bi, or then they don't consider a bi. But to me, another answer to that is then with these things, I don't think you should be putting labels on people. That's very true. So that's another way to look at it.
Falls in love with the people rather than the gender. And, you know, it's not a gay versus bisexual thing for Willow. It's just I fall in love with who I fall in love with. Hush overall, I mean, I'm pretty sure this was one of the only episodes that was actually nominated for an Emmy for writing.
I was going to say it did get awards.
Yeah. And rightly so, you know, so
it's a perfect episode.
It really is. It really is. And I think most people would agree to put it in like best Buffy episodes, you know, because I mean, this is the episode that even if you haven't seen Buffy, you have probably heard of this episode or seen parts of it. So it's really great. Hires eat blood. Well, sometimes I like to scrunch up the Weetabix, put it in the blood, add some texture, and just like, since the visual image you painted for me means I will never again eat food, you can get the Weetabix.
Yeah.
So this is what I mean about, I think Giles and Spike are honestly one of my favorite dynamics this season. And again, the whole British thing, you know, and then butting heads. And I really love Giles and Spike. I think they're really fun.
Because I like the line in another episode, in case we don't remember to mention it, but when he comes into Spike's crib and like Spike says something like, "Oh yeah, the place needs a woman's touch. Fancy giving it a go." It's like,
that auditorium scene is just like the peak of like, okay, I don't like to praise Joss Whedon too much anymore because he's such a douche, but I'll give him credit where credit's due. I think that scene really shows what a great writer Joss can be and how he really knows his characters inside and out and knows, you know, how to write them without dialogue, and that's really hard. So as much as I don't like to give him props for Hush, because I think Hush really is the pinnacle of what he can do as a writer and a director, and just really shows off the his skills. It's a pity that he sucks in real life, but that's all right. We can still enjoy his media. The next few episodes for me were a bit of a slog because they really are the initiative heavy episodes. So pretty much from Doomed through to Goodbye Iowa, this is where I started to lose steam when I was watching. Like up until like Hush, I was like really like, oh my God, I'm really loving this season. I'm really enjoying it. And then we hit Doomed and it just kind of started to slide for me. So I'm interested to see how you like this run of episodes and what your thoughts are on how the initiative develops, because you seem to like it more than I do.
I'm in agreement with you on this run of episodes. I actually quite like the Iron Team.
Okay.
I don't really like. I think Goodbye Iowa isn't as good because you get more into the Riley stuff, and I find him quite annoying in that episode. Is not bad. Yes, the Iron Team is quite entertaining. You've got that card scene at the start, which is really funny, and on the spanking line. I just want to make.
We enjoy spanking.
Yeah, the cards go everywhere. That's great. Because then Willow even brings it up, like everybody's getting spanked
but me.
Yeah. But I do want to make a couple of points about Doomed quickly. Yeah, because it's forgettable. The highlight is Spike. When Spike finds out he can hit demons. Yeah. So that's his reaction.
Let's go out and save puppies.
Yeah.
Children. Yeah.
So good. So yeah, it is for Spike. It's worth it. But the other comment I wanted to make just quickly on that one is: have you noticed how there's a scene in it where Giles's lines appear to be dubbed?
Oh, I didn't notice, but I'll have to rewatch. Actually, you know what? Whereabouts was it? Because that actually does sound. Do you remember whereabouts it was in the episode?
I think it might be quite early. I think it's
when Buck's talking to him in the courtyard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
'Cause
you're right. Yeah.
his voice sounds too posh, like posher than it normally is, and he's also
Yeah.
talking a bit too fast in it, so I think it might be dubbed. Hanger for an episode, but it obviously does feel rushed because...
Because I mean, it's the first time we've really met Adam, and we've only really gotten to know Maggie Walsh a little bit, and all of a sudden, boom, she's gone. It's like that. It did feel really abrupt, which makes me think that they really did lose the actress halfway through the season, because it just
I
feels
think they
so
must
out of
have done.
nowhere. That being said, the Iron Team does have one of my favorite Buffy moments when Professor Walsh has tried to kill her and she's going to Riley and she's like,
That's
Riley,
good.
Buffy's dead. And then she appears on the screen. And I just love that if you think that's enough to kill me, you really don't know what a Slayer is.
Yeah.
Trust me when I say you're going to find out. And I'm like, yes.
Her hand, like, keep asking questions. That's quite funny.
And I love the visual of like all of the soldier boys, these big men in their army gear. And there's little Buffy in her bright orange halter top. It's just great. It's a great visual.
And I also like the Private Benjamin reference. That's good. Do you know what Private?
Yes.
Yeah, with Goldie Hawn, yeah. Because that's obviously got Maggie in, yeah.
A New Man is, I think, a really fun, underrated episode. I listed this as one of the best character-centric episodes of Buffy, because I think it gives a really good look at Giles, you know, and where he is in the thing. Like, I love that he has that little insecurity when Buffy suddenly has a new parental figure in Maggie Walsh, you know, when Maggie says that Buffy obviously doesn't have a strong father figure. You can see Giles being like, oh, and then, you know, when he doesn't, he's the last to know about Riley and the commandos, and you can see just how lost and out of place he's feeling, because he's not a librarian anymore, he's not a watcher anymore, he doesn't really have a place in Buffy's life, and now she's moving on without him. And then Giles as a demon, oh, and of course, Ethan Rayne, wonderful Robert Sachs come back, you know, rest in peace, so wonderful. And Ethan is always so much fun. I love the bit where Giles has walked out of the crypt and he comes out and he's doing his big speech, and then Giles pops like, hello, is someone there?
Oh shit, I thought you'd gone,
Exactly, yeah. And then when they're having a drink together and they're, you know, just old buddies, and it's like, oh, it's just Ethan Rayne is just, he's fantastic. But Giles is a demon, you know, not knowing his own strength, so he rips his, you know, he rips his banister
apart. Yeah, the
apart,
phone, he breaks the phone, that's so good.
Rips his shirt in half, you know, all of that. And then I love when he goes to Xander, and Xander just starts throwing kitchen utensils at him. He's like throwing pot pans and stuff at him. And of course, Spike being all like, it was like, I'm speaking English? No, you're speaking Fioral. I just happen to speak Fioral. What the hell happened to you? And, when he tells him about the mucus, like, do I have any special powers? Like, well, it's the mucus thing. Yeah, it's just so good. A New Man is fantastic, and I like the resolution at the end. I love Buffy's explanation, like when he's like, how'd you know it was me? It's like, your eyes. You're the only person in the world who can look that with me. So, oh, and of course we have a great, kind of similar to Spike wearing Xander's clothes, which another great highlight of Doomed is Spike wearing Xander's shirt. You get to see Giles and Ethan's shirt, and this one, remember, he's wearing that horrible sparkly like silver shirt at the end.
Yeah, that's scary.
So yeah, in among all the initiative stuff, we do have a New Man. And I do think that is, very underrated episode.
Scaring the shit out of Maggie. That
is fantastic. It's one of my favorite Giles moments in all the series, because I just love that he just gives in to his pettiness. And he's like, yeah, gonna go scare Maggie Walsh. So good.
And
I love it.
You know what I like as well, which is a little twist, because it's a Buffy birthday episode, and normally on her birthday it's normally her who has the bad day. Exactly. But I like that it's actually Giles in this case. Yeah.
Seeing Adam, like, so when you watched it this time, you were saying that you liked him a bit more. Did it start with this episode, or was it like more as the season went on?
The season went on. Like, you don't get that much of him in this episode, but it's...
No, you just get him with his awesome floppy disk drive.
But there's actually, like, the one thing I made a note of from the episode is there's actually a really good pop culture reference in it from Buffy. And it's when she says about, can you please not relive Scenes from My Parents' Marriage.
Mm.
Well, that I don't know if you know where that comes from. That comes from an Ingmar Bergman film called Scenes from a Marriage.
Oh, okay. That's
And
cool.
I'm assuming because Joss Whedon's a big film buff, I'm guessing he would sort of know that film. But
that's cool.
so it's a very good film. It's a very depressing film because literally you see a breakup of a marriage, and it's sort of as the title says, scenes from a marriage. So you're dipping in and out at various points in the. But it's an exhausting film because it's like a full-on sort of drama.
Yeah, Frankenstein's monster thing with him, when he comes across the boy in the woods and he's like, what are you, what am I? And then he dissects the boy. I don't think it was executed very well. Or maybe they just didn't have enough time to kind of really develop Adam. But yeah, I can kind of see what they were maybe trying to do with him. But as with the entire Initiative storyline, I just don't think it was executed that well. And maybe if they'd decided to have Adam as the monster from the beginning instead of Professor Walsh, maybe they would have had more time to build him up. Because like I said, he does have a scene in Restless where Buffy comes across him in human form, him and Riley. And they have an interesting little exchange about we're not demons, or are we? And then she's like, what was your name? And he's like, before Adam, not a man alive among us knows. And I don't know, it was like they were hinting at something deeper there that they never really dug up. And that could have been really interesting, but kind of fizzled out, at least for me.
No, I think that's fair. I think he could have been a better villain with more time, but I just think over time I've got more into him, and I think part of it is because I actually really like the actor. I think the actor does a good job. I think he has a certain phrasing, like a certain very deadpan phrasing. Which
you're right.
Yeah, he sort of feels like he is this sort of half human, half kind of like robot style thing, and
his design's pretty cool. Like, it's a pretty cool design, I think. He looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I think it just helps and he's got a personality, because I think for a while I just thought, he's just a bit of a boring, lumbering kind of big, like, monster. But I think when I rewatched it, I got more into the actor's performance, and I like the stuff with him and Spike. I think they make for a good team.
That is an interesting dynamic.
It's almost like, again, I think, to use an old, but I think of Spike almost as like a manager of a wrestler type thing, and Adam's like the big sort of wrestler. But there's some fun stuff with him and Spike. He has some choice lines, Adams. I actually like his line about parts of him being made up of Boy Scouts. That's a really dark line. But really
that's when he's like, he
well.
says like Scouts honor, and Spike's like, you were a Boy Scout? Parts of me. I did. Yeah, that is fun. And and again, this is one of the reasons that I like Spike this season, because I like that when Adam comes to him, he immediately is like, yes, this is a way that I can help wreak some havoc. They're very much showing you that even though he's chipped, he's still very much Spike, and he's still very much going to F up your plans if he can. And I particularly think the Yoko factor is really good in showing how Spike is able to manipulate people and get under people's skin. We see a little bit of that in Doomed when he points out that Willow and Xander, when he has a go at Willow and Xander. But I think that people really underestimate how manipulative Spike can be, because he's usually like brunt force. We usually just think of him as like, just coming in and kicking things. But when he's forced to be, he can actually be quite clever. And he can be quite manipulative and duplicitous. And I like that side of Spike. That's what I want from Spike. His team up with Adam is very fitting. It's very in character. And I really like that it's a creative way of him kind of getting to the Scoobies without being able to just flat out beat them down.
For them, then he actually killed the kid, because that's going pretty dark, because we've talked about how sometimes they'll skirt around that. Like we said with Gingerbread, how in the end it turned out the kids weren't dead. But we like that episode, but that's just one of these things with network TV. Like, very rarely will they do something like that.
Iowa kind of showcased that Mark Blucas is not a great dramatic actor, because the scenes where Riley is breaking down, he was okay, but I feel like other actors in this show could have sold that breakdown better, which is a pity because I actually didn't mind that storyline of Riley kind of like having to deal with the fact that the initiative is maybe not what he seems, because Riley is very much like a government boy, you know, he's a good American soldier, he does what he's told, he doesn't question things. So I think that like bringing someone like Buffy into his world, someone who does see things in shades of grey, and having that kind of belief system of his break down. Interesting storyline, but again, maybe not executed that well. And Mark Blucas, like I said, not that great of a dramatic actor.
Wasn't too bad in that scene in the bar.
In Willie's, yeah, I think that's probably the strongest point.
Yeah, and that's actually quite a good scene, I think. I like them reintroduce Willie, and
yeah, it was cool to see Willie again.
How he's changed a little bit, and
I love how he's like, "You're gonna have to hit me. Come on." And he's like, "Ow! I haven't even touched you yet."
Because this is his last appearance, I think, isn't it?
Yes, I think so. Oh, did we see him in season 5? Does Riley go to his bar? And we'll have to see, but I think you might be right. I think this might be Willie's last appearance.
Because I think this is around the time the actor went to Becca.
Yes, of course.
So I think that might be why. But because I'm pretty sure we see the bar again, but it's being run by someone else.
Run by someone else, I think. Their entire belief system kind of crumbling around you. And like I said, especially the American army, which I'm pretty sure is very much, you do as you're told and you do not question. You know, you're a patriot, you're going in for your country. And Riley's very much all of that kind of all American G.I. Joe soldier boy. So the fact that they gave him that kind of storyline, I think that was quite interesting. Fizzled out a little bit, I think, towards the end. Years Girl is such a great episode, and really showcases where Faith is and where her mental state is and where her headspace is, and just how alone and how far she has fallen. Because I really think that Faith's worst behavior is these 2 episodes and then her crossover episode onto Angel. I actually think a lot of the stuff she did in season 3, because in season 3 she was working at the mayor's behest. So a lot of the stuff she did was, on his behalf, and it was working towards this goal of the Ascension. Still evil, but at least there was a rhyme and a reason. Whereas now she's woken up, she's completely alone. I mean, that scene where she wakes up and comes across a girl and she's like, graduation day, and then
girl,
and you just think like just the realization when she's like, everyone died, the mayor, and you just see Faith, like that realization that she's completely alone. And then that horrifying implication when she walks out of the hospital in that girl's clothes. It's like, what did she do to her? Where is that poor girl now?
Because I think we find out she's just injured the girl.
I think she
at least she didn't die.
But it's still a very chilling scene, to see Faith walk out. And I think that Eliza is really in top form in this episode, showing just how lost Faith is. And I was talking to Stephen, and I was saying that in season 3 of Buffy, even though Buffy did try to help her a bit, I think Faith at that point was just too broken, and I think that that's why she tipped over so quickly. And I think you really see that in this episode. And like, I feel very sorry for her when she goes, like I was saying earlier, she goes to see Joyce and she talks about how, she woke up and you find out that the world has just moved on without you, that everyone's just moved on without you, and that no one cares. And I think that's really emphasizing how alone Faith is. And I think that's why, and we'll talk about this more when we do get to doing Angel, but I think that's why that's why Angel becomes so important to her, because he really is the first person to reach out without any kind of altruistic motive, without any kind of bad backstory. He actually just reaches out and says, I will be there for you if you let me. And no one's really done that for Faith. Like, no one's really 100% ever said, I will take care of you, I will help you. Like, the mayor takes her in, but he's evil, so that was never going to be an even relationship. Buffy is only a 17-year-old girl. She can't offer Faith the support that she needs because she's just a girl herself.
Like, everything with Faith in this episode is really good. Like, we get that opening dream sequence, her and Buffy, so that's the one, isn't it, where Faith mentions little sis about, and that's some clever foreshadowing. And that whole and the stuff with the mayor I really love on the picnic blanket. That's another.
And when he picks up the snake and he's like, "You're not
Yeah.
supposed to be here," like that's really clever. I also really like how you see that from Faith's perspective, Buffy is the monster because Buffy is the one that that stuck a knife in her gut. So I like that you see in her dream sequence that she can't wake up until in her dreams she overpowers Buffy. So I thought that was very interesting look into Faith's mind and the mindset she has about Buffy at this point in time.
Mayor later when she's watching the video. That's really good. I just love that he did a video for her and he almost anticipated then if you're watching this I'm probably dead. And he cracks the joke about I could be on the screen in like some sort of like museum. He's like, "Hi kids."
Yeah. It was so great to see Richard, to see the mayor again, and to see Harry Groening come back. That was great.
Yeah, so there's a power to that scene. The fact that even from the grave, he's still being classic mayor and he's still making her laugh because obviously he's one of the only people who can make her laugh in the world. So I really like that. Yeah. And also there's this thing they do the body swap thing really clever where they don't reveal what the device does until the end of this.
Until the end.
And I like that. And I also wonder if Faith knew what it does. I'm assuming she doesn't because he obviously doesn't spell it out on the thing. So
because if you look at both of their reactions once they've been swapped, Faith in Buffy's body, she looks just as stunned as Buffy in Faith's body. And it's only because she has a brief half a second because she knew that the device was going to do something. So she was prepared. So, and that's, I think, the only reason she gets the jump on Buffy afterwards and manages to knock Buffy out. Body swap episodes make me very uncomfortable because while I know that they literally cannot happen in real life, and thank God for that, there is something very skeevy about someone else going inside your body and knowing everything there is to know about your body and using your body to, it's creepy. It's creepy as all hell. And I really don't blame Buffy for not being able to forgive Faith for this because it is such a huge violation. And it's just, it's awful. Absolutely. It's really awful. Yeah. I think Who Are You is a little bit weaker than this year's Girl. And I think that's only because body swap episodes are very hard to do. They're very, very hard to do because it's almost never that you get an actor who can actually embody the other character. I think Eliza and Sarah do a decent enough job, but I don't love Sarah as Faith, I have to admit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think she quite nailed. There was something about Eliza and Faith and that character and that marriage that just worked so well that I just don't think. I mean, Sarah does a very good job. I really like that she gets the Boston accent a few times. You can hear it slip in when she says like out and stuff like that. But she doesn't 100% sell me as Faith, and vice versa.
That probably is an unpopular opinion, especially with Sarah, because there's been a lot of praise for the way she plays Faith. And I sort of feel like Elijah, with her side, has less to do anyway, because you know the scene where she's arrested by the Watchers and stuff? I sort of feel the way she's reacting in those scenes is maybe similar to how Buffy might react anyway. So it's sort of, in a way, it's not that much of a change. Whereas I think, once again, we've said this with Sarah Michelle Gellar, when she gets to play a villain, she really enjoyed it. So, like, that scene in front of the mirror is a standout for me. I mean,
that one is fun.
The scene outside with the policeman, I like the fact that it's Faith embodies Buffy's body, so she reminds him then Faith isn't just a little girl, she's a threat. I quite like the ego of Faith coming through in that moment, the fact that she's got to remind then Faith is a threat. Yeah.
And I do like the little arc that Faith actually undergoes herself in that episode, you know, kind of being in Buffy's body when she starts out with the whole, you know, you can't do that, it's wrong. But by the end of the episode, she's gotten to a point where she can say that genuinely, you can't do this because it's wrong. Because I think that Faith never, like, there's a scene where she's in the Bronze and she goes and she kills a vampire. And as she's leaving, the victim reaches out and is all like, thank you. And she's like, Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, that's
I
a
don't
good
think,
scene.
yeah, so I think that's Faith for the first time realizing that slaying is actually, it's not just about going out and killing monsters, it's about helping people. And I think, she starts to learn that as the episode goes on, and that's why she goes to the church at the end of the episode, because she realizes
Yeah,
that she has a duty.
and the
Now,
Spike
yeah.
stuff I enjoy.
Oh, well, see, I don't really, because, yeah. But I think that Sarah does a good job in that scene. But again, it's just kind of like, But is this where
I
Spike's
think
whole
it's just a
obsession
good
starts?
payoff to the previous scene where she's been rehearsing and then you get her say
Yeah.
that line back at Spike and really get into the body swap stuff. And I think the gimmick works for me, whereas maybe the gimmick doesn't work for you. So
I think it's just too uncomfortable for me to watch. Like, I don't, like, I understand, like, what they were
yeah,
trying to do when having Faith and Buffy, and particularly Faith, walk in Buffy's shoes. But, like I said, the idea of someone crawling inside your body and having control of your body, and I mean, our bodies are very private things. We only show them to certain people, we only reveal what we want to reveal, we all have our own insecurities and our own issues when it comes to our bodies, so someone actually occupying that space is really creepy. And we need to talk about the Riley stuff, because that is not good.
well, also before we get there, the terror stuff, because I think this is the episode that showcased Faith as a human being, because like you said, back in season 3, you could excuse a lot of it because she was being influenced by the mayor and there were certain other factors. Again, we're talking about a very young girl here, but yeah, I mean, the terror stuff is just so nasty and mean. But I do actually like that as a character beat for Tara. I like the fact that she, first of all, it brings up the magic side, the aura. She knows from the aura, but also just, no, this isn't the Buffy you've described me. She wouldn't be this mean. And so I like that. And we've already mentioned it, but the scene where they do the spell, that's a really good scene. And I like how it's contrasted with the sex scene with Riley. How, as we said, the spell is almost like a metaphor of them having an intimate scene, like you say. And I really like that. But.
Yeah, no, it's a well-written scene, and it's written, to mirror like a sex scene. So, again, that's them trying to sneakily get stuff under the radar. The Riley scene, unfortunately, and this was absolutely not their intention when they wrote it, and I know this, but unfortunately it is, this is not a consensual scene, because Riley doesn't know that is not Buffy.
Yeah.
And so therefore
it's absolutely not.
Yeah, this is definitely a rape scene, and it's not supposed to play out like that. And obviously, like, and this is really hard, because like in the next episode, Buffy is like upset that Riley like cheated on her, but which again, I understand what they were going for, like how you're supposed to trust the person that you're with when at your most intimate moment they look into your eyes and they don't know that it's not you looking back. But by the same token, it's like, Buffy, maybe we should be focusing more on the fact that your boyfriend got kind of violated by Faith and ended up having sex with someone he wasn't consenting to. But I understand why this didn't come up, because I mean, it actually took me a few years to realize, oh, hang on a sec, this isn't consensual, because it's written in such a way that you don't really think about that. I also think that the way that the sex scene comes about, the lead up to it, definitely reveals more about Faith than has previously been revealed. When she goes to Riley and she's all like, what do you want to do to this body? What sort of nasty little thoughts have you had that you haven't been able to act out? And then she's all like, am I a bad girl? Do you want to hurt me? And it's like, yeah, normal people don't say that, Faith. You definitely have some sort of sexual assault history going on. I've always suspected that Faith was written to be a survivor of sexual assault. There's so many hints about it. And then the fact that in the middle of the act, when Riley says, I love you, and she freaks the fuck out, excuse my French, and, she starts trying to get away, and she's all like, what do you want from her? The fact that she can't recognize a genuine loving connection during sex is very, very telling for the sort of experience that Faith has probably had. So that whole scene from both sides, I actually don't think I watched it this time around, because I just found it too uncomfortable. Very well done scene, but very uncomfortable scene.
Yeah,
And,
but then it is meant to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So,
And it is a pity that it wasn't realized in universe that is technically sexual assault. But like I said, I understand why it wasn't. It really is only in recent years that we've started to realize a lot of this stuff can be seen as non-consensual. And I mean, like I said, when I first watched this episode, I had no thoughts of that. For me, I was the same as Buffy. I was like, come on, Riley.
Her reaction is quite natural.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
I don't think she's harsh on Riley at all. It's just this idea of once that's happened.
Yeah.
It's very hard for a while to be intimate with that person.
And
again.
I do agree. And I do think the way she's written is, very natural and makes sense.
Yeah, and there's certainly plenty of... The majority of the blame is placed on Faith. So she definitely gets that right. She goes after Faith and it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. It's
and as we do see, Buffy does seem to be more hurt than angry. And like I said, I do understand that. Like I said, how do you, the person that you're in love with, what happens when they look into your eyes and don't realize that it's not you looking back? Like you want to know that the person that you're with knows you intimately. And the follow on Angel, which when we eventually get around to doing Angel, we'll obviously revisit this, because obviously when she goes to Angel, that's when we see Faith at like her absolute lowest point, and that's the turnaround for her. But we obviously see it start in these episodes.
Yeah, and it's interesting because this is one, because we've agreed on the majority of things this season, but I actually do have a preference for Who Are You. I think that's slightly better for me. One gem in that as well is I love Giles overacting when he's trying to distract the cop when they come.
Yes! There are women and children and tiny babies. Yes,
he's so good in that thing.
Oh, I also love when Buffy's in Faith's body is trying to prove to Giles that it's her. It's like, once when I was psychic, I heard my mum say that you were like a stevedore during sex, and should I go on? And Giles like, no, actually, I beg you to stop. What's a stevedore?
Joyce picking up on what she thinks is Buffy choosing the same lipstick as like Faith. That's a good touch as well. But
I also love Joyce in the episode in This Year's Girl when Faith is like mocking her and she's like, you're thinking you'll never get away with this, and Joyce is like, actually I was thinking that my daughter is going to kill you, and I'm just like, yeah, Joyce, you're awesome. And then when Buffy like jumps in, she's like, hi mum, hi honey. Joyce always knew, she always knew that Buffy was going to come and rescue her.
Next one's an interesting one.
Okay, what is your opinion on Superstar?
I quite like it. It's enjoyable. It's definitely on the lower end of the season when it comes to episodes, but that could be a compliment to the season where overall the standard's pretty high. But as a one-shot episode, I quite enjoy this one. And I think also it's a nice showcase for Danny Strong. It shows what a talented actor he is, because... he is really good and really entertaining, and shows many different sides. Because I love how at the end he's back to Jonathan again, and sort of very scruffy looking, and the underdog once again, amazing. But it's one of those I just enjoy. There's just so many nice touches, like, the poster on Riley's Raw, just all the different, like, he starred in the Matrix.
I love that.
If he didn't leave town, and he coached the women's soccer team to a miraculous World Cup victory, and just the whole thing with the book and stuff. I love Honor in the episode, the whole shrimp speech, weird sort of episode where it just feels like its own thing. But no, it's one that I admire for this show, because I admire they've got the balls just to do this really peculiar episode out of nowhere, where you've got this character who hasn't been seen since season 3, and suddenly he's the star of the episode, and you're kind of wondering why. And then it's quite fun to actually see why throughout the episode. And I love the credits. I love them having all the shots.
Oh, man. the first time I watched this episode, I was so freaking confused. Like back in the day when I saw this for the very first time, I remember going, "What is happening? Why is Jonathan suddenly in the credits?" It was so bizarre.
Yeah, because we were watching it the other day on stream, and Cindy had never seen the episode, and she was the same. Yeah, what is going on?
Yeah. I find with Superstar, I don't mind it, but I don't love it, and I find that I don't love it as much as like other people in the fandom do. I think it is fun to see Jonathan. It's got some really fun visuals. Like I absolutely love that scene where he's down in the Initiative, and all the Initiative guys are like 6'2" and 6'3", and then in comes little Jonathan, and he's like this big. You know, I think it's fun. Some of the scenes are really fun, like when he's playing the trumpet at the Bronze, and everyone's going crazy and stuff. And I also think that this episode, even though we don't know it at the time, is actually giving us a piece of very important information, which is that you can cast a spell that can rewrite people's memories to such a degree that they don't know what's real and what's fake, because that's going to come into play with Dawn in season 5, you know? So they're showing that within this universe, this sort of magic actually does exist. And I think then when Dawn appears, if you look back at this episode, you can be like, oh, okay, you actually can change the universe like this. You can plant memories like this, and you can build, you know, a completely new universe. So I do think that it is important. And I don't know if that was the point of this episode, but I wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't part of the thought process in writing this episode, to show that you can just change an entire universe. Yeah, with magic. So... But I do think that it does lag a little bit, especially towards the end when Buffy's, you know, figuring things out, and that bit with the monster. Also, does Jonathan go to college? Like he's hanging around on UC Sunnydale campus at the end, but does he actually go to college? We don't really find that out.
That's true, and you haven't seen him previously.
No,
I mean that's a bit murky, because obviously if he's made himself into a success because of this magic, then in theory he doesn't really need to go to college. Yes. I mean, unless he showed up that day maybe to make amends with Buffy. I guess that could be one. But I do like that it ends on quite a positive. I like the advice.
Unfortunately, when season 6 rolls around, we see that he didn't really take that advice, did he? Poor Jonathan.
I was going to say, he's this weirdly sort of tragic character, isn't he, in the Buffyverse, where there's certainly moments where you think he's going to redeem himself, and then he just doesn't, sort of thing. And some of it's through bad luck, and some of it is through him being his own worst enemy as well.
And we'll talk about this more when we get to this season, but I'll say it now. This is why I have always thought that it should have been him and not Andrew to join the Scoobies in season 7. And when we get to season 7, I'll talk more about why I think that is the case. But I think that was a real missed opportunity in season 7 to give Jonathan an actual proper arc, because he has been with us since the beginning. Some of it's really fun, but I think for me, it's more important in the grand scheme of the universe in showing that these sort of spells can be enacted. And I think that's quite important, obviously, when we get to season 5 and Dawn. It does give Buffy some very good advice about Riley in this one. She and Riley patch things up on the back of Jonathan's advice to her. So at least he does something good.
He's strong, because he's had this really big career trajectory where he suddenly is this really big presence as a writer in like TV, and TV in particular, because he was behind Empire, wasn't he? The show Empire.
Yeah. He's done a few things. I know there was another one that I found out that he wrote that I was like, oh my God, Danny Strong, that's amazing. Let's have a look.
Yeah, well, he did that recent mini-series, like Dope Sick, about the drug with Michael Keaton.
Yes.
Yeah,
and you're right, he did Empire as well. Yep.
On Buffy is an underdog, and then in real life he went on to become, really influential. As
The Hunger Games. He wrote Mockingjay, the final Hunger Games movie.
I didn't know that, so that's
pretty big. Where the Wild Things Are. Who wrote this episode? Well, we know who wrote this episode, but
Tracy.
Oh my God, this was such a bad episode. I was watching it this time around, and I remember I used to not mind this episode. I don't know why, because I was watching it this time, and it was like insulting me on every level. It was just not good.
It is really bad. The highlight is, of course, I was singing, of course. It's like, was like, to be the bad man.
Oh,
to be
yes.
the Giles. Yeah.
So does he do this often?
Yeah.
I love it. Now I
So
remember why I used to have such a crush on him in high school.
I like the fact that he puts his ear in on every time he kind
Yes.
of goes into
Yes.
like the
Yeah.
midlife stuff, and he's really yeah, no, that's good. I quite like the stuff with Spike and Honor, and
Yes. At the
that's
bronze. Yeah.
I quite like Spike when he leaves later on, when he convinces himself then why he shouldn't help them.
Yeah,
And
please, like, I'll go. I mean, I don't particularly care about any of you. And Buffy's tried to kill me on more than a few occasions. And I don't really want to go into the... You know what? That all sounds pretty good. I mean, he just walks off.
But that's about it. That's about it for that. The rest is absolutely shit. It's an absolute crappy gimmick of an episode.
What were they trying to say with this episode? I don't even know. I mean, I know they had that whole thing about like repressing sexual desires and stuff, but it did not. It was stupid. It came out in such a dumb way.
Some really stupid scenes. The scene where they're feeling the wall and
the orgasm wall. What the hell was that? Steve and I are watching it and we were like, what is this? Okay, it's like there are so many steps that have to be taken before you get the final product. So it's like, first of all, who wrote this? Then who approved the script? Then who decided to film it? And then who decided not to cut it out during editing? Like so many processes where we could have gotten rid of this horrible scene. Oh, so bad.
It's once again an infantile mind, but it works so badly. The stuff with that girl who Xander sort of has a
thing the one who cuts all her hair off, and I did like the little Felicity reference though. People going all Felicity with their hair. I thought that was a fun little reference.
But once again, because they don't have chemistry or much chemistry, you
don't feel this. Yeah, they're supposed to be like uber horny Buffy and Riley, like constantly wanting to like get on each other, but it's not. It's a bit.
You know what's amazing about it is they utilize Buffy less than the episode in season 2 where they had to reduce her role because she was hosting Saturday Night Live. This is the worst Buffy has ever been used in any episode.
Yeah, you know what? I think that there was a reason. Again, I think Sarah was missing again from this episode.
I did wonder that. But...
So I think I'm just having a look at the trivia on. Well, it doesn't say anything here, but I swear I remember reading something that Sarah was not as available this episode, and that's why.
It would make sense because obviously, apart from shagging Riley, she does pretty much nothing else in the whole of the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a terrible gimmick. It's really cheesy. It's not even that dark. I mean, there's the potential to make it dark, and they don't really take it. There's some stupid visuals, and once again, it comes back to the thing of maybe this writer not understanding the characters. Because, for example, I think Honor is really inconsistent in this episode. I think Honor at the beginning feels like Honor, but then even though I quite enjoy the stuff with Spike, I think some of the stuff at the party, she's not quite acting like Honor.
No. I know what you say. She feels a bit more insecure than she normally comes across, and a little bit more, I don't know. But I get what you're saying. She doesn't quite feel like herself in the episode.
Yeah, I think the way she's talking isn't quite on her voice sort of sensibility. Yeah. And I think occasionally it works because like the ice cream van. I think that's actually quite a funny scene.
That was quite funny. Yeah.
But and
I think that leads into the whole, like you were saying, Anya not quite understanding human relationships, so not understanding that just because she and Xander don't have sex on a certain night, that doesn't mean that they're going to break up, things like that. And especially because their relationship is so physical, I think for her it really would be like, oh my God, we didn't have sex tonight. What's going on? What's happening? We always have sex. So-
if you remember, in the run-up to this episode, Forrest particularly, but the initiative in general, haven't been very friendly towards Buffy. And suddenly in this episode, Forrest is a lot more accepting of her.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
No, it's really weird. It's almost like this episode was written earlier and then like slipped into
Yeah.
like the later episodes, and then they hadn't sorted anything out. But no, you're right.
Yeah.
There are some weird inconsistencies, and I don't know. I feel like with the monster of the week for this one, the kids, I feel like they were kind of going for the poltergeist angle, whereas poltergeists are usually spirits that come out of sexual abuse, usually at the hands of a young girl. Usually towards a young girl. So maybe they were going with the whole repressed sexuality, poltergeist, but it just didn't work. Like I don't think they put enough thought into it. We at least get to see Mrs. McCluskey, though. At the end, Karen Houston turns up at the end of the
wonderful
episode.
actress.
Yeah,
she's
but
also in The West Wing. She's the
but kind of wasted in this episode.
Absolutely.
They bring
the
such
other
a great
thing,
actress in, and then they kind of do
Terrible.
nothing with her.
That's
And then the end of the episode is kind of just resolved by them bursting in on Riley and Buffy having sex, and then boom, everything's fine. It's just a weird episode.
You know what I really hate is the shot of the aerial shot from the bed
Coming
when it's
down
really
on the
done.
bed.
That's such a stupid
it's
shot.
Bizarre. It was really weird. This whole episode is just really bizarre. And I was watching it this time around, and I was like, "What? Am I even watching Buffy anymore? What is this episode?" It just feels so out of place.
And the
really
thing about it is, it does drag. Like the pacing's really bad, and it's one of those rare episodes. Ones. It's sort of partly saved by the Scoobies and the characters, but even this, I don't think. Like even their writing, I think, is quite bad in it. So.
And it reminds me a little bit of the placement of it. It reminds me a little bit of when we were in season 2 and we were talking about how Go Fish is suddenly just thrown in before. Well, this one's suddenly thrown in before, like the final 4 episodes of this season are all like pretty strong. We get a good run from like New Moon Rising through to Restless, but then you just have this weird episode that just kind of sticks here before we get to those final 4 episodes. So Where the Wild Things Are, I think definitely one of the worst episodes in this season, and just not a great episode in general.
Catherine Juster character it feels so unresolved. It's like, what did they do? Did they call the police later because of this? Because it just felt like, okay, she did this bad shit all these years ago, but because I guess the less you can get her to confess, then maybe it would be their word against her, but it just felt a bit unsatisfying the way it was paid off, really.
Definitely not great.
Very boring.
But at least it leads us into New Moon Rising, which is another heartbreaking episode, but I do really love New Moon Rising because we get the resolution of Oz and Willow, and we get the true start of Willow and Tara, the absolute confirmation that, yes, they are in love. And we also get a nice little angle for Riley in this episode, like you mentioned earlier, because Riley doesn't quite understand, Willow dating Oz, because, again, this is kind of what we were talking about earlier. Riley's world has been very black and white. He's a good commando soldier, and he fights the demons, and the demons are bad, and go America, and all that stuff. Whereas in this episode, he kind of has to realize that, no, there are shades of grey. And I actually really like that he goes against the initiative and actually helps to save Oz. That moment where he comes to get Oz, from the initiative, and he's helping him out. I think that's that's one of my favorite Riley moments, where he has that realization, no, this is not okay. And he actually goes and helps Oz. And if the nerd, if anyone watches his recaps, brought up when he was recapping this, is he pointed out that the writers kind of take an easy way out with this episode. They don't actually make Willow choose, because they go with the wolf comes out of Oz when he's near Willow. So it's kind of a Buffy and Angel thing, He can't be around her because she brings out the monster. Is this a running theme in Buffy? I think there's an essay in there somewhere. I'll have to work that one out. But and I never really thought of that, because they make it look like she's chosen Tara at the end, which I think she always was going to, but they kind of take a soft option. I don't think they did that to kind of appease the Willow and Oz fans, kind of saying, it's not that she chose Tara. Yeah, it was an interesting thing that he pointed out that I'd never really considered, but he's right. She doesn't actually actively choose Tara. It's more that they realize that Oz can't be around her.
Things they're going for is just it's legitimately hard
Yeah.
when a former, like an ex, comes back into your life, and
Absolutely.
especially the way that relationship ended, where even though she was hurt by what he did, and like in the long run she still wanted to get back together with him.
Yeah.
So it brings up all that stuff, and it's obviously at this point it's quite early in the relationship with Tara.
Yeah.
But and maybe it's just if there is a flaw in it, maybe it just came about because they had to come up with a way to write it just to tie things up. And
yeah, I don't necessarily think it's a flaw. It's just an interesting angle because, we all leave the episode feeling like that Willow chose Tara, but then when you go back and you realize it, you're like, oh no, the writers were actually a little bit sneaky with this, and they actually did it in such. And I actually think it works out the way they did it because I think it does appease the Willow and Oz fans, but it also leaves the area clear for Willow and Tara. And I was very glad that Seth came back to do this episode because I think we needed it. We needed that little bit of closure on Willow and Oz for us to truly move on with Willow and Tara. Oz is taken by the initiative and they're experimenting on him. That's hard to watch.
Yeah, that's rough to watch.
Yeah, because this is someone we know and someone we care about.
Cheesy, but I also quite like his "No, sir, I'm an anarchist" line.
Yeah, it's a bit cheesy, but it works. And it works for the theme of the character, because if he's not with the government, then he's against them, which therefore makes him an anarchist. So yeah, it is a great little moment. And
Buffy reacts to the news of Tara. Some fans criticise that. What do you think of that scene?
I think her reaction, especially given the time that it was, is fine. I think that she reacts the way a lot of us would have reacted back then if we found out that our friend came out to us. I think she's a little bit startled and at first doesn't quite know what to do, but it only lasts for a few seconds. She realizes immediately, she's like, when Willow's like, why do you keep saying my name like that? And she's like what, Will? And she's like, are you weirded out? She's like, no. And then she's like, no, I'm not. So I think her reaction was fine. I think sometimes modern audiences seem to forget that times move and that, the way that we react to things, you have to look at the time. This was 1999/2000, okay?
Yeah.
Like, Ellen had only just come out a few years earlier. We were still very much not homophobic, but we didn't have a lot of queer representation, and your average person didn't know a lot of queer people, or if they did, they weren't out yet. So I think Buffy, I think her reaction's fine. She's a little bit off at first, which you would be back then, and then she immediately is like, no, Willow, I'm here, I support you. And that's it. What about you?
I agree. That's exactly the way I think it's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And it's because she moves on so fast and she just accepts then Tara's with Willow. And if she lingered on it too long, then I could see more of a problem, but she doesn't.
Like if it had been like for the whole episode or something, then I might have been like, okay, come on. But no,
you're right. It's a sign of the times, and I think also it's quite natural if you have no knowledge of your friend having, being a lesbian / bi, whatever you want to say, but it's quite natural then you would have a reaction of some sort. The only line that lets her down is the line in the Yoko factor, because she makes that line about if I was any more, and
open-minded about the
bad
choices
line.
you two make.
You could say it's heat of the moment, but that's maybe
that is a bad line, but that's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it.
Yoko factor, but I do think of the 3 final episodes, it's probably the weakest, but it's still a lot of fun.
I agree. It's a lot of fun for the reasons you said.
Spike working his little.
Spike's wonderful. Planting the seeds all over the place.
Plus, drunk Giles is
so
fantastic. So good.
Yeah, because when he goes upstairs, and at one point, doesn't he throw his jumper?
He throws his jumper down and it lands on Zed. Plus, I also love when Zed is like, oh yeah, you'll be laughing when I'm doing push-ups over at Fort Dix. And Giles is like, Fort Dix?
Oh, that's a really funny line.
And he just starts to laugh. Also, when he goes to sit down, he's like, he's going to kick your ass. And he just falls off the chair.
Yeah, because that whole scene feels like a classic sitcom sort of farce.
It does,
isn't it?
doesn't
it's that
it?
sort
It's
of thing where, like a couple of misunderstandings leads to
Spike's been in there, sowing the seeds of discontent, making all his little evil
Well,
plans.
he's so clever, isn't he? Because of the way he picks up on Terror and Willow, because he sees the hair thing, from there he's really smart.
I really do think this is some of Spike's best work, like as a villain. Like even overlooking season 2, I think just the way that he gets inside all of the Scooby's heads. And the way he can manipulate them, it's fantastic. It's like, I think Angelus would be proud of this manipulation, This is like grade A manipulation. Also, the scene where Giles is singing Freebird and Spike just turns up.
Oh, that's so good, yeah. I love the fact he walks in on him and scares him, yeah. Yeah, that's really good.
But yeah, that whole fight is it's brilliant. Everyone's comedic timing is on point in that fight. Everyone's having such a fun time. Tony Head is having so much fun just staggering around. Pretend she's like, are you drunk? Yes, quite a bit actually. And just, everything about it is, it's brilliant. But it's also a bit hard to watch, because this is the culmination of everything that we've been talking about with this season, this disconnect with the Scoobies, going off in different directions, new relationships, new dynamics. They all have new romantic partners, they all have their own lives. And so I think the Yoko factor is showing all of that splintering so that we can come back together for Primeval and show that they work best when they're a team.
The scene is the scene where Spike tells the Yoko Ono story and it explains the title of the episode. Yeah. But I like Adam's response, because he asked him, "Have you not heard of the Beatles?" And I like Helter Skelter.
Of course he likes Helter Skelter. That's the one Charles Manson liked. Of course he does. Little Angel appearance. We get to see Angel and Riley go toe to toe.
Oh, that's fun. I almost forgot about that. Yeah,
right at the beginning.
As Buffy says, the
testosterone in this room is killing me. So I see any more displays of testosterone, I'm going to put both of you in the hospital. And I love Angel being all like, he started it. No. But what I also, Stephen and I were talking about this because we were talking about Buffy and Riley and how good they actually are this season. We're like, what goes wrong? And then we're like, oh, he sees Buffy and Angel together in this episode. And I'm sorry, but once you see Buffy and Angel together, they don't even have to be romantic, but once you see them in the same vicinity, you know it's over. You know that you are second choice. And poor Riley, I think in that scene, really sees that. She doesn't mean to, she just can't help herself.
But also, I really enjoy that fight scene between them. It's a really fun fight. And naturally, I was cheering on Angel in that scene.
Of course, we're all cheering on Angel in that scene.
Because also, later on, Riley's a bit of a hypocrite because he sort of runs Angel down and says, well, that was him on a good day. But he was as much in that fight as Angel was. So
100%.
It was definitely the both. But I really love that scene. It's like,
me too.
I love when he throws him across and he's like lands in the hole, like all those barrels and stuff. That's
and
just the whole little touches of like Angel later on. You actually sleep with this guy, and
I know that's brilliant.
Back and I like Riley's like, I'm not moving a muscle. I'm not.
I know. And then like,
and
he's like, nope. I'm staying right here. It's like, oh yeah, you've got the high ground, Riley. You stand your ground, buddy. I also really like that Angel and Buffy get a little bit of resolution from after 5x5 and Sanctuary, which obviously when you see Angel, they don't leave on the best terms. So I like that they have that little bit. And Buffy's like, it means something that you came.
Yeah,
and then I love Angel as he leaves. He's like, oh, and Riley, I don't like him. Thank you for that.
The audience is like, no.
And the audience is like, Angel speaking for all of us. We like Primeval mostly because I like the way it brings the gang back together. You know, that talk that Willow and Buffy have as they're going down the elevator shaft, and they're like, we'll stay in touch, we'll be closer, and then they're like, Xander, come down here, and they're like, Xander, we love you, we love you so much, Xander, and Xander's like, oh God, we're gonna die, aren't we? Because it's just like, and I think that the enjoining spell is fantastic. I actually really like the enjoining spell.
That's really good.
Yeah, I love the way it plays out. I love each of their roles, because their roles are very, very, specific. You've got Giles, the head, Willow, the spirit, and Xander, the heart, and Buffy is the hand. And I think the final fight between her and Adam is really good.
Really
so what do
good.
you think of the Adam stuff in this episode, like particularly with Riley? Do you like that angle, or do you think it could have been better expanded upon?
If they got more episodes, but I think what they do in this episode is quite good.
It's interesting,
and
yeah.
I do quite enjoy it. Like, they almost play on, could Riley go full-blown villain a little bit, because they play on, he's got this connection with Adam, and there's some fun B-movie style stuff in this.
Yeah, and of course, this is Forrest at his best as a non-speaking
is, and we obviously get
monster.
Maggie back.
Yes, that was a very cool appearance. Actually, I quite liked that. I remember the first time I watched this season, I was like, "Oh, Maggie! Whoa, Maggie's back! Yikes!"
Yeah, and this whole weird sort of family tree. But
the final fight with Buffy, being the uber strong Buffy, and I love that she's able to change Adam's grenades into doves and things like that. Like, she's got the power, the magic power, and the physical power, and I just think it's a really fun fight.
Yeah, because when we were watching it last night on stream, Cindy said this is a really cool fight, and it reminds me of Mortal Kombat, which I hadn't thought of, but it is that sort of thing, thinking of. And it's so perfect for what they were doing this season, where, that they've been fractured, they've been separated, and now they have to come together. Because it also sells the threat of Adam. It's this idea that possibly on her own, Buffy can't defeat him. So it's really perfect. Then if you combine all of them together, they all have different strengths, and they can all defeat him. At the end, are really well filmed, I think. Considering this is still a reasonably small budget show, I think it
looks pretty big, pretty epic.
Good.
Yeah, I quite like it. I also think that this reinforces and this idea has been brought up time and again in Buffy, that one of the things that makes Buffy so different from other slaves is she has a team, Scoobies, and when we get to the later seasons, we can talk about how they absolutely crap all over this concept. But for now, they've still got that idea of this is her unit, and this is why she's different. And I think the enjoying spell, in particular, these 4 characters, because these are the 4 that have been there from the beginning. Others have come and gone. We've had Angel and Cordy and Anya and now kind of Spike, but Buffy, Willow, Xander, Giles, they were the original core 4 Scoobies, and I really like that this kind of emphasizes that dynamic and that relationship. Restless, which I feel like we could just do a whole video just on Restless.
There's so much to talk about.
So much to talk about. Just each of their dreams is just so revealing. Every single one of the dream sequences just really reveals so much about the characters. I think Willow's is my favorite, because I just really love all the imagery in Willow's, Little Miss Kitty, and I love the callback at the end when we see her in her season 1 outfit, the softer side of Sears dress, because I think it really shows, as we've been talking, how Willow is more confident this season, and she's, a better version of herself, but it shows that part of her is so terrified of that geeky, shy little doormat that she believes she used to be. And that obviously is a thing that comes up for her in season 5, and particularly season 6. And I think it's a great visual representation to show how she feels there. Who's your favorite sequence? Which one's your favorite dream?
Might be Xander, actually, but I do like all the dreams. Yeah.
All of the Apocalypse Now imagery.
Yeah, so good. And I do say I prefer Armand Shinnaman's version than Marlon.
To Marlon Brando? Absolutely. 100%. And it was so great to see him again. That was really fun.
This cast is stacked, because obviously they bring back a lot of people and include a lot of people. But seeing him back was really good. And there's some great stuff with Xander's one, because that's the one with Giles and Spike on the swings, isn't it? And
yes.
Also, the ice cream truck scene is very interesting. The fact that you've got Willow and Tara in the back there,
I also like the hints to his home life when he's in the basement and he keeps saying that's not the way out, that's not the way out. And then when his father comes down and literally rips his heart out, like really like speaks to Xander's home life. There's so many hints about Xander's home life over the series. So
yeah, that's actually quite
like that.
haunting. Yeah, it does hint at that there's darker things from his past.
Absolutely.
I also like in the ice cream van. I love Anna doing the arms when she's.
Oh
like,
yes, I
know
figured out how to steer by gesturing
Yeah,
emphatically. Yeah,
that's
a
really
one.
good.
Yes.
And Joel's speaking French is funny, and I'm assuming that's just a metaphor for maybe Xander not always being the most intellectual.
I think it's more supposed to show that he's just got communication issues. You know, he can't understand what they're saying. Like, communicate with me. And Xander's always been bad at communication. We all know this. So I think that's what it's supposed to kind of represent. But yeah, Xander's, look, all of the dream sequences are great.
Really
Giles has the exposition song, which we all love.
Yeah, that's so clever. That's so.
I love that. And try not to bleed on my couch. I just had it steam clean. It's so good.
I also like from that scene on doing the stand-up comedy. I like the idea of her being a budding sort of stand-up. That's really good.
That's a good one. Now, I wanted to bring up in Giles's dream when we were talking about Olivia earlier. You see her in Giles's dream with a pram, crying over a pram. And I'm like, are they trying to hint that maybe Giles, like Olivia wanted to start a family or something like that? Like, it feels like there's a few undercurrents there that are like interesting. Like they didn't quite expose them, but they wanted to plant an idea in our minds. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Like, obviously, I just read it as they're showing almost like a family unit with Buffy. Like, because
I love Buffy as the kid.
Yeah, she's great.
I am a vampire. I haven't got any treats for you. Oh, and of course, Spike hiring himself out as like a sideshow attraction with all the.
Yeah, that's good. That's another one they included in the titles later, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I never thought about that with Olivia.
Yeah, next time you watch it, have a look at Olivia, because I do think they're maybe hinting at some things that maybe it was a development they were going to do this season and then decided not to do. But yeah, I thought that was quite interesting.
Well, because thinking about it, and it's something you don't ever think about in the show, but of course, Giles doesn't have any kids in the show.
No.
Right? And he's that sort of age where you think, well, a lot of people his age would have had kids by now. So
yeah,
that's interesting. Maybe it's just because he's always been so dedicated to his career.
His dream, we get all the Dawn hints, you know, be back before dawn. And Faith and I just made that bed. I love her desert scenes and of course, like I said, that scene
really
with Adam and Riley is really interesting. The little hints there about what they were maybe going to do with Adam, very interesting. Plus, I also love when the sirens go off and they're like, we have to build a fort. I'll get some pillows. And then they run off to do that. So I thought that was fun. Did you know that Tara in Buffy's dream, you know how Tara turns up with the tarot cards and stuff, that was actually supposed to be Angel. They wanted to put Angel in there. And I don't know why they changed it. It might have been that David was unavailable or they just wanted to give Amber something more to do. But yeah, it was originally supposed to be Angel in Buffy's dream, which actually does make sense. I think for Buffy, that would make sense to have Angel there. But it works just as well with Tara. So I was all right with that.
Yeah, because I think with Tara, it's an interesting pick because she's someone who Buffy is still getting to know, like she doesn't really know. So it maybe dramatically makes it a bit more interesting. And I really like Amber Benson in the episode. I think she does a great job. A David Lynch fan, how could I not love this episode? Because a lot of it does feel very Lynchian.
It's very Lynchian, isn't it? Even some of the colours, like Willow's dream when she's going through the red curtain, makes me think very much, you know, that is a very Lynch touch. Oh, I forgot to mention the Death of a Salesman play, which is just absolutely hilarious. I love the Death of a Salesman play. And why is there a cowboy in Death of a Salesman anyway? I just love Riley.
Yeah, that's really fun.
I got here first, so I'm cowboy guy. And and Harmony trying to bite Giles.
That's good. You know, I was about to say that.
Like, stop that.
Josh said that one was just a gag. There's
it
no
was
meaning behind it, basically.
Which is absolutely hilarious because so many fans have written like massive essays, like analyzing the cheese man and what does the cheese man mean and what does the slices represent. And then Joss came along and was like, nah, man, he was just put in there, because I thought there's always random things in your dreams. So,
yeah,
so we're going to have the cheese man, but we got to love him.
But also another thing about the episode.
I got Stephen to grab me this.
Very nice.
But yes, what were you saying?
No, another good thing I like about the episode is the whole thing with the First Slayer and the fact that they give you a satisfying answer to why this is all going on. Because it's already a great episode anyway, but then they introduce that, and it's something good to chew on, which they bring back later. So, yeah. And there's logic to it, isn't it? Yeah.
But it's a good explanation for why they never do this spell again, because it's like, this spell is so effective. Why wouldn't you use it again? It's like, oh, because it kind of caused the First Slayer to try and kill us all in our sleep. That's probably a good reason to not do that spell again. So I do like that.
I think, also it's a fun idea for an anthology style thing, like them watching videos at night, and you could get different stories, like just going into their dream.
In Willow's dream, the poem that she's writing on Tara's back is by a very famous lesbian poet, things like that. So, there's just so much detail in this episode, and it's great.
Fun experiment for a final episode. It obviously breaks with the norm. It was a slow burn episode. Like the first time I saw it, I didn't really get into the episode, and I think it's that sort of episode. But the more I've watched it, the more I think it's one of the best episodes. Definitely of this season, and maybe altogether. So maybe the only thing that changed this time is I did actually get more into Adam. I think that's a change for me. Like I said, I like the idea of the initiative more than you do, but I do agree it falters in the execution.
Yeah.
By the way, it makes me laugh in Primeval at the end where you get the government a bit where they said they're terminating the project. It's like, we consider this project a failure. It's like, no shit, Al. It's
I know, right? Like, no, it was a raging success, this one.
But that's a very X-Files style thing. I can see what you mean by it feeling more. Buffy fans do have problems with those sorts of episodes where they feel Buffy isn't really a sci-fi show, so when they do that, it feels a bit out of place.
That's kind of my way of thinking, To me, Buffy is supernatural and horror, and season 4 is a little bit too much government, conspiracy theory, X-Files type stuff. I don't think it was hugely grating, but it didn't quite work for me, and I think overall the Initiative and Adam are probably, in my mind, one of the weaker big bads of Buffy. But that being said, we have so many great big bads on Buffy that it's like, well, they just could speak to the quality of the other big bads.
What would you rate season 4?
I think I'd give season 4 a 7 because it was actually, I found it to be stronger this time around than the last time I watched it. Like I said, I think it gets off to a really strong start. I think the first half has some really great episodes. It's got a couple of the best episodes in Buffy, with Hush and Restless. And I think that the characterization for the majority of the characters this season is actually really good. I really like Buffy's arc this season. I really like seeing her in college, trying to find her feet, Willow being in her element and her new relationship with Tara, Xander. You know what? I really love Xander this season. Xander gets a bad rap, but okay, so he didn't get into college. Fine. He has to stay at home, but he's not lazy. You see him all season working different jobs, trying to figure out what to do, And eventually, as we see in season 5, he finds a job that he's good at. Sometimes you have to trial and error. So I think Xander this season is actually really great. Like I said, this is the season where I enjoy Spike the most, and that is saying a lot because we all know how I feel about Spike. But him as an antagonist, I think works really well. Oh, also, I forgot to mention during Goodbye Iowa, one of my favorite parts is when Riley's like, "Don't I know you?" He's like, "No, I'm just a friend of Xander."
No, he does fake Southern accent.
Well, the fake American accent, but
yeah.
But I do think this season is dragged down a bit by the initiative and by Adam as a big bad, because I do think it got a bit messy. You know, obviously there were some cast changes, there were some script changes, and there are some truly dud episodes in this season, which brings it down for me a bit. But I would give it a 7 out of 10 because I do still think it's a pretty solid season, and I did enjoy rewatching it this time around. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going higher. I do like this season quite a lot overall. I'm actually going to go 8.5.
Okay, fair enough.
I think it says something. So the highs are so high, then I think that's a big part of it. And if you take the initiative stuff out of it, I think the development with the main cast is really good. And the core theme of the season to do with them being separated and then coming back together, that stuff there's not really a fault with. So I think that stuff is really good. Yeah, obviously there's really weak episodes as well, so that brings it down a little bit. But no, I actually think this is a pretty consistent season. I sort of think if the average episode in the last season was about an 8 out of 10, probably the average episode this season was a 7, which is a pretty good average, and that's not too much of a drop.
A lot lighter. You know, we've just come off season 2, which was a big gothic horror romance tragedy, and then season 3 got very dark with Faith and, you know, the mayor, and then we had the Angel breakup, whereas this season it felt a little lighter, you know, a little bit more like season 1. You know, some of the episodes were a bit funnier, and we did have some drama, but I felt overall we had a lighter tone and a bit more of a fun season, and we got to see Buffy a little bit more separate from like all the tragedy that she's had to deal with in her life. So I did like that about this season, that it had a lighter tone, and that made it quite enjoyable to watch.
Edition of we'll eat some cheese, I guess. Yeah, but I've got my big list which has been updated, so I'm going to whip through these. So we're into the 70s now at this point, episode wise. So as Rachel eats more cheese. Okay, well, there's a new number 1, so I think you can guess what the new number 1 is from
Restless?
this season. No.
Or Hush.
The other one, Hush.
Hush. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. This is a perfect episode. We
really
said all the reasons why, and plays with the form so well. So that's number 1. Number 2 is Amends. Number 3 is Graduation Day.
Nice.
Number 4, My Boy Spike, Lover's Walk. Number 5 is Bewitched, Bothered and Bewildered, so still going strong. 6 is Becoming. 7 is Innocence. 8 is Passion. 9 is The Wish. 10 is Restless. So Restless. I could go a bit high with Restless, actually. I do really like that. But I think the standard is so high with those episodes, then, to be in the top 10, that's very good. Number 11 is Surprise. Number 12 is Who Are You? Number 13 is Pangs, so again, strong placing for Pangs. Number 14 is Doppelgangland. Number 15 is This Year's Girl, so not too far off the other one. Number 16 is Earshot. Number 17 is The Prom. Number 18 is School Hard. Number 19 is I Only Have Eyes for You. Number 20, What's My Line? Number 21, Prophecy Girl. Number 22, The Harsh Light of Day. Number 23, Fear Itself. Number 24, Primeval. It's funny, a lot of the season 4 episodes are bunched together. Number 25, another season 4, A New Man. Number 26, The Initiative. Number 27, Lie to Me. Number 28 is Choices. Number 29, Band Candy. Number 30, Helpless. See, we're on the season 3 roll now. Number 31 is The Zeppo. Number 32 is Anne. Number 33 is Halloween. Number 34 is When She Was Bad. 35, Revelations. 36 is Homecoming. 37, The Freshman. 38, Something Blue. I think you would have that a bit higher, wouldn't you?
I probably
'Cause
would,
think-
yeah.
But it's good. I like
But
that
probably
one.
not that much higher, because there are so many great
So
episodes.
many,
That's the
yeah.
thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, and number 39 is Faith, Hope and Trick. Gingerbread is 40. The Iron Team is 41. Consequences is 42. Ted 43. The Puppet Show 44. 45 is Angel. 46 The Pack. 47 Wild at Heart. 48 Witch. 49 New Moon Rising. 50 Goodbye Ira. 51 Bad Girls. 52 Welcome to the Hellmouth. 53 Killed by Death. 54 The Loco Factor. 55 is Superstar. 56 Enemies. 57 Deadman's Party. 58 The Harvest. 59 The Dark Age. 60 Phases. 61 Glorious Entertainment, I, Robot You, Jane, which actually jumped up a place this time around, I can say. 62 is Doomed. 63 is Living Conditions. I actually might prefer Living Conditions to Doom. I might change that order.
Bump that one up, definitely.
Yeah, I might bump that up. Okay. 64 is Beauty and the Beasts.
Yeah.
65 Reptile Boy. 66 Never Kill a Boy on the First Date. That might be a bit low. I might prefer that to Reptile Boy, actually. I'm not sure. I might have to think.
Actually, yeah, maybe. At least that one doesn't have a, penis snake.
67 Out of Mind, Out of Sight. 68 Nightmares. Where it belongs, Rachel. 69 Some Assembly Required. 70 Bad Eggs. 71 Inca Mummy Girl. 72 Teacher's Pet. 73 Where the Wild Things Are. 74 Beer Bad. 75
Nice.
Go Fish. So Go Fish
nice.
is still,
Yeah.
only just. It got some stiff competition.
Yeah, I reckon between that and Beer Bad, it would be a toss-up. Like, yeah. Very nice. Well, we all know I do not approve of where you put Nightmares, but aside from that, not a bad ranking.
Yeah, I might tweak it a bit, but overall, I'm quite happy with that. Yeah. Okay.
Nice.
And we'll continue it along. So that's been our review of season 4. Thanks for listening. Let us know your thoughts in the comments of anything we've discussed, because we've really gone the full range in this video, discussing so many different things. Let us know what you think about Adam and the Initiative storyline, and just some of your favourite or least favourite episodes. We will return with a special video where we'll rank we come up with a combined list for bottom and worst 5, or top 5 and bottom 5 episodes. We also do an MVP of the season. We pick one each, so we'll return with that video soon. But again, let us know your thoughts. Share us out on social media, as always, if you want to plug your channel, Rachel.
Guys, you can follow me, Rachel McDonald, video essays on TV shows and movies. I do have quite a few Buffy videos on my channel, so come and check that out. Tumblr is also linked through there, so come and follow me everywhere. And remember, I wear the cheese. It does not wear me.
That's a nice way to end Animal, and I bloody love it. So see you again, guys. Take care. Bye.